Once I learned that it was better out than in, passing gas became such an art. Nothing left to say, total eclipse of the fart. What's up? I'm waiting on a pizza, gonna get shit-faced tonight. Well, it's a great night to do it, Otello. It's a great night to do it. Every night's a great night to do it now. It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world as we know it. You know, I say that, I joke about that, but I'm of the opinion we've been going through a pretty transformational change here in America. Maybe America's always changing, right? Maybe that's part of the problem I'm having. Maybe it's a problem of perception, but my perception is that we have been under a significant period of social, cultural, and political upheaval for about the last 10 years now, give or take. I think the first signs of the change started to happen maybe a little bit before, but I think things are different now, and we go through these changes. You know, even if I'm going to look at all the different little periods and times that America's gone through as like distinct eras, we've gone through those changes. It's happened. But I feel like we're going through one right now, and maybe the length of time that it's taking to complete this change indicates its severity or indicates the breadth of it, but we'll just have to see. I do think it's the end of the world as we know it, but what is the next world going to look like? I don't know. I guess that's up to the people who helped destroy this one. Do you think America as we know it will be functionally dead within 30 years? I think Paul made that statement. No. No, I disagree with Paul pretty heavily on that. Paul has this idea that China is going to take over or that Russia is going to take over. One of these big Western nations is going to take over. I think that might happen, but not in the next 30 years. Anything can fucking happen right now. Human beings are still kind of in our infancy as a species. And while we are increasingly at risk from the technology that we develop, even as we continue to develop more and greater versions of it, I think that America as a country is going to continue to exist for a good long while. I don't know what event could happen at this point that would seriously jeopardize that. I mean, even if America loses a lot of its ability to trade with international partners, that isn't going to secure like some fall of the American government. It's going to take some really fucking severe shit to ever unseat that, you know? But I think that we are leaving our position of primacy. I don't think that can be argued. America is clearly not the best country on the planet anymore. America is clearly not the best country for to raise kids in anymore. America is clearly not the best country to get healthcare in anymore. America doesn't graduate the most scientists. There are a lot of fronts in which it's very fucking clear that America is no longer on the rise, but rather on the decline. But when people like Paul say that it's going to be in the next 30, 50 years, or even in our lifetimes, I have my doubts about that, because I think America is a pretty resilient place. And I think that the American form of government is meant to be pretty resilient. I think we're meant to kind of resist foreign invasion and domestic disputes and things like that. We have a democracy that's very much built to resist that kind of thing. But, you know, give it enough time and any democracy can be watered down to the point where corporate interests can take it over as they have now. And once you get to that point, I mean, empires do have a tendency to collapse. Over the last 100 years, if you look at history, empires and big countries have a tendency to collapse once capitalism has been allowed to exercise too high a degree of control over the people and over production. And we might be reaching that point now. but I don't know that that's going to lead to the dissolution of America. I think far more likely than America being taken over by China or something like that happening in the next 30 years, I think it's far more likely that America goes through a massive socialist revolution or something to that effect. A massive revolution of some type. My personal opinion is that it's going to be some kind of mass socialist or socialist-leaning revolution. And failing that, I think it'll be a fascist revolution that eventually ends up being counter-revolution by some kind of socialist movement. I think either we'll take the direct-to-socialism approach like Britain and France and some of those countries did in the wake of World War II, or we'll have to go through a fascist stage where we're, and maybe we're going through that stage right now, Otello. Maybe we're going through that stage right now. Big Mac lover? I haven't had a Big Mac in so long, it's not even funny. I don't eat Big Macs, bro. They're not the best sandwich that McDonald's has. They used to be. At one time, I would tell you the Big Mac was like a really great sandwich. You should definitely get you one. It's really good. But nowadays, dude, nowadays the Big Mac is just a piece of shit. Too much lettuce. The beef, I swear to God, the patties have become smaller. Shrinkflation has happened with those patties. You can't tell me shrinkflation ain't happened with those patties. So they're putting more lettuce, less patty, more like less sauce, I think. Like the buns are bigger. I don't know. The whole sandwich is just shrinkflation personified, so I don't get the Big Mac anymore. But I haven't had fast food in general in probably like a month. Vance 2028. I mean, Trump was saying that Vance is not his progenitor, and now, or not his progenitor, but you know what I'm trying to say. Trump was claiming that Vance was not going to be his successor. The other day, somebody asked him about it on Fox Nation or something like that, and he claimed, yeah, you know, I don't see why Vance wouldn't be the next choice, but he didn't really get hardcore firm behind Vance. So it seems pretty premature to me for people to be shouting out Vance as a possible 2028 pick. Like, honestly, isn't it a little early to be shouting out 2028 picks in general? Y'all, you realize we're like 3 years out from the election? Like, you realize we just got done with this shit around, like, not even this time last year. Around this time last year is when people were starting to gear up to get ready to start understanding politics for the once every 4 years that they do. So it's not even been a year since the last election, and people are already this fucking angry about it. People are already this ready for the 2028 elections. People are already spitting out their candidates and offering up new choices and things like that. It's ridiculous. People are just electorally fucking poisoned these days. People are just politics brained in a way that I can only aspire to. Make sure you guys hit that like button, by the way. Every single time you hit that like button is another chance to send the stream out to even more people, which increases the chances of your viewing quality going up by increasing the amount of people in the chat. So hit that like button because it helps the channel, it helps you, it helps everybody. And also, if you want to make absolutely sure that your question gets read, consider sending a super chat. I do read every single one as long as it doesn't violate TOS. Nice shirt. Is it a hand down from your grandma? I don't think you're capable of spelling hand me down, so I'll forgive your little like spelling mistake, but it would really help you if you're trying to like dunk on people online, right? There's a very easy tactic that people will pull out in order to counter trolling, and it's called pointing out the moron. So when someone types out a shitty, low-value comment online, and they type it out with a giant fucking spelling or grammar error right in the middle of it, it makes it incredibly easy to dismiss that person's criticism, critique, or commentary because they're clearly a moron incapable of proofreading on the smartest device that humankind has ever known. Trying to sound smart because it got roasted. Ooh, sticking up for the moron in chat because you're a moron with a low IQ as well. Oof. Are you the person who got roasted? Is this your all? Are you in here running defense for your own shitty positions and useless commentary? By the way, I take umbrage with the phrasing sound. I'm not trying to sound smart, I just am smart, and I sound smart as a result of that. Pretty easy cause and effect kind of thing. Usually the kind of thing that people learn in, like, I don't know, 3rd grade, 4th grade. You are here for our entertainment. Dance, clown. Now pay me. Speaking of paying me, make sure you send a super chat if you want to make sure your question gets read. I do read every single one as long as it doesn't violate TOS. What's your body count? I would have to count it up, but something like 11 or 12. Let me suck dim titty? No. Certainly not for $2. You're gonna have to send some, like, crazy super chats to make that happen, my friend. $2? What kind of cheap whore do you think I am? What are you smoking? That is a set of dabs called Cheetah Piss. Good stuff. Make sure you guys hit that like button. It really does help. If half of you guys hit that like button right now, we would have 122 likes instantly. Instantly. There we go. I was trying to make the snap happen, okay? No. Double tap your screen or hit the little like button somewhere up here, and that will make it so that the like button goes up. Oh. Yeah, we're going to have to just turn on idiot mode, huh? Yeah. What's your opinion on the American military? Way overbloated in terms of budget. I think that there's a lot of corruption and fraud that goes on in the American military budget. And it's funny because we always hear Republicans and conservatives complaining about waste, fraud, and abuse in the healthcare system, waste, fraud, and abuse in the Medicare system and Medicaid and the welfare system, all of these social programs, right? Anything that helps the people, it's fine. You can accuse that of having waste, fraud, and abuse in it, but don't suggest to a Republican senator that there might be a significant amount of waste, fraud, and abuse in the fucking Pentagon's budget. They won't hear it. Even though other people from within their party, policy analysts, everybody else, is like, yeah, there's actually a lot of corruption in the Pentagon. It's like kind of an ongoing problem with both administrations. No matter who's in office, no matter what party claims to be in control of things, for some fucking reason, the military-industrial complex is a giant pool of taxpayer money that can never be touched. Never be touched, right? So endlessly, we can criticize and question the funding uses and the appropriations and everything that come with Medicaid and other socialized medicine programs and really just any kind of social program here in America at all that helps the working class. But you want to fund the military? Well, we're willing to fund the military endlessly with no accountability at all, even though we know it's just kind of like an open secret that a fighter jet does not need a $1,500 coffee mug. Even if that coffee mug is meant to integrate into the fucking hardware of the machine, we know how markup works. We know how corporate profits work. And it's become just so fucking obvious. And all of the American people know it. You and me, we know it. You and me know that the American military is a massive fucking misspender. Well, not even the military, really. It's military contractors and companies that supply the military. They are massive misspenders of taxpayer funding. And politicians are massive misspenders of taxpayer funding. It's not the average everyday soldier or even a lot of the people in the command of the military that are engaging in this shit, because those aren't the people getting really fucking fundamentally rich off of it. You know who's getting super fucking rich off of these sweet government contracts, these sweetheart deals between Raytheon and the US government? You know who's getting fucking rich off of that? People like Hunter Biden, people like Donald Trump, people like Joe Biden, people like people like Ivanka Trump, people like Hillary Clinton. People that are in the fucking insider circles of politics are the people who really fucking benefit from these sweetheart deals and all these posh government contracts, while the working class just continues to fester with stagnant wages, lowered benefits, worse hours, etc., higher rents. But don't question any of that. Don't question the military funding. Don't question the fact that there's, between like 50 to 60% of every dollar spent in the U.S. military budget is just unaccountable. That we don't really know where it goes as a people. Never mind that fact. Don't talk about that. Don't bring that up. But social services, you can cut from those all you want. Make sure you guys hit that like button, by the way. If you're liking the conversation, if you enjoy what we're trying to do over here, fostering difficult conversations between people who disagree, consider hitting that like button and consider sending a super chat if you want to make sure that your question gets read. I do read every single one, as long as it doesn't violate TOS. Thank you guys for hanging out. Trump, amazing. There we go. Bro, just give me my coffee. Would you believe me if I told you that this was my only source of income? Yapping. I know. Be jealous. Now, to be fair, I'm a stay-at-home parent. That's my fucking first and primary duty. But as far as a job where I'm paying taxes and making income, YouTube's about it. For me. Damn it. What's your opinion on Kamala Harris banning gay marriage as California state attorney? That Kamala Harris has always been a traitorous bitch. That Kamala Harris was only ever a dino, My response to that is the same response that any fucking well-educated, reasonable leftist or even liberal person would have said 20 years ago, which is that Kamala Harris is no friend to the fucking working class. That Kamala Harris is no fucking friend to marginalized people. That Kamala Harris is every bit as much of a corporate fucking cop as anybody else that's ever been involved in fucking politics at a high level. That she is not some special magical politician because she happens to be black. That alone does not make her qualified to hold the office of president. That's my opinion on Kamala Harris broadly, not just with her banning gay marriage as attorney general or whatever. I was never a Kamala fan. In fact, I was a critic of Kamala way back in 2020. Way the fuck back in 2019, honestly, was when I first started having criticisms of Kamala Harris. And honestly, you know what my first criticism of her was? Man, this lady is boring. Man, this lady is just fucking lukewarm oatmeal. Lukewarm, unflavored, unsweetened oatmeal. Make sure you guys hit that like button, by the way. It really does help. Every single time you hit that like button, it's another chance to send the stream out to even more people, which increases the quality of your viewing pleasure by increasing the amount of people engaging in the chat. Have you tried joining the military? I actually did want to join the Navy last year before, last year I kind of decided that it was going to be a life path of mine. I was going to try and do that. But Then Trump got elected, and I knew that trans people would be banned from the military for the next 4 years at least. So, what are you gonna do? And people are gonna like see me being fat, and they're gonna be like, how, like, what was like your plan there? It's like, well, I've lost 40 pounds over the last year just from making that commitment alone and sticking to the changes that I made as a result of that, like, and I haven't weighed out in like a month, so I might have lost more weight in that time. Line go down for the first time in my life. Not the first time in my life, probably, but for the first time in my adult life, line go down on the weight chart, which I'm pretty proud of, even if you don't care. Good for you on the weight loss. That's not easy. I mean, honestly, after I got used to it, the changes were easier than I'd given them credit for. But what's not easy ultimately is making the commitment, right? Making the commitment to drink less calories, making the commitment to eat smaller and more like reasonable portions, making the commitment to not eat as much fast food, to limit it, like seriously hard limit it. Making commitments like that is pretty hard when you haven't followed those habits throughout your life, especially your adult life. But after you follow those habits for a month or two, you get kind of established in them and you start kind of feeling the improvements of it, and it makes it pretty easy to stick with it. But there are certain temptations I'll always struggle with, a road trip or something like that. It is very much in my nature to want to stop at a fast food place and get something quick to eat. But I will say, credit to me, the last few times I've went to a fast food place, I did eat better things at 8 years old, I think. I don't know. I was a kid, so like anybody that's like a grown adult will tell you that the older you get, the more memories of your childhood kind of start to mash together, and it becomes difficult to discern exactly what year this or that thing happened in. You start to have to use other things that were happening that day or in that memory to try and correlate it. Like, okay, well, I know that this must have happened then because in this memory, this piece of news is happening in the background, and that happened around this time. You have to do calculations like that, and I don't have any specific memories of my time going through the diagnosis process. I don't have any specific memories of that have any sort of like dating mechanisms in them. But when I think back, I'm thinking it was around 8 or 9, from the from the visual and from like the I remember the SUV that my mom was driving me to the appointments in, and I know that we didn't have that when I was a little kid. I know that was something we didn't have till I was, well, I guess you are kind of a little kid at 8, but I didn't have that. We didn't have that SUV until I was like I said, 7 or 8 or something. So I know that it had to be like I was like 8 or 9, something like that. I don't trust diagnoses. Well, you can trust mine. I don't think you need a doctor to tell you that I'm autistic. If you know what to look for, trust me, the signs are there. And I really don't care either. I mean, like, I'm an example of the rare autistic person who's able to talk pretty well, which shields me from a lot of the criticism that autistic people get. And I've also got a pretty good sense of emotional regulation because I received quite a bit of help for my autism because I was a properly diagnosed autistic kid, right? If I had actually been, it's ironic, right? If I'd been born a cis woman, right, instead of being born a trans woman, if I'd been born a cis woman, I probably wouldn't have gotten diagnosed and I probably wouldn't be as well adjusted as I am. But because I was born male and they assumed I was a boy, and, everybody did until I came out when I was 21, I was properly diagnosed, I was given the proper amount of care, and I received individualized education care until I graduated. I had an IEP all throughout school, from the time I was diagnosed in like 5th grade or something like that, 4th grade, to the time I graduated high school. Man, I need a better torch. Hit up my Cash App to buy me a better torch. No, but seriously, hit that like button. If you guys haven't hit that like button already, please do that. It really does help. Every single time you hit that like button, it's another chance to send the stream out to even more people, which increases the quality of your viewing pleasure by increasing the amount of people engaging in the chat. So hit that like button. It really does help. Get a job? I have a job. I do this. People pay me to have interesting conversations with me and occasionally to hear music. It's my job. My main job is taking care of my son and cleaning my house. And feeding the animals, things like that. Yay! Getting a flame out of this motherfucker just feels like such a victory at this point. You're a dude? I'm not. You saying that I am doesn't make me one. But if that's what you need to tell yourself so that you sleep better at night and you don't have to challenge any of the backwards narratives that the people who raised you saddled you with, then sure, whatever you want to believe. As the great Paulsego once said, I will not shrink away, hide, or disappear merely because you said a mean thing about me. I'm sorry. I know you would like it if I would, but I've got way too much pride and ego for that. There we go. No, we need your kind. What would life be like without you? Yeah, what would life be like without trans people? Without trans people to distract you from all the real problems in the world? What would life be like if you guys didn't have transgender people to point and laugh at instead of pointing and laughing at the stupidity of your fucking country? What would you do if you didn't have trans people to oppress instead of actually confronting the meaningful problems in the place where you live? What would you do? What would life be like? That's a good question. I wager to say that things would be very much the same because there would be some other scapegoat that the ruling class would find to draw your attention to. I'm pretty sure that's what would happen. Things would continue on very much the same as they always have, especially over the last 10 years. Things would continue to ratchet down in severity, but you guys would find some other group of people to attribute all of those bad things to, some other group to blame for all of your woes, and the cycle would go on unabated. By the way, hit that like button if you haven't hit it already. You use the men's room or the ladies' room. It's not really any of your business, frankly. But like, just to answer the question, I stay away from multi-person restrooms in public. If I absolutely have to go to a public restroom, I wait until I'm in a gas station, or I will specifically go to a gas station or something like that has single-person locking restrooms, and then I use the women's room. Because at that point, like, people are way less apt to say anything. Not that I'm afraid of somebody saying something, because like, it hasn't happened yet, and when it does, plenty of people have said things to me throughout my life. Very few of them have stepped, but I would rather not deal with the bullshit when I'm just trying to take a piss and leave the restaurant or leave the gas station or whatever it is. And for some reason, people don't seem to mind as much when it's a gendered restroom that is one person only. People say all this shit about bathrooms, but when it comes right down to it, nobody cares if you're. And two, I've seen so many cis people do it, and they just use the excuse, "Oh, the other bathroom was taken, so I just use this one," and it doesn't really matter. So that's my solution for the whole bathroom problem. Excuse me, by the way. But my whole solution for the bathroom problem is I don't use multi-person bathrooms because I don't want to deal with the. It's not really that I'm expecting a violent reaction. I have to stress that. What I'm actually expecting is someone to say something untowards and to draw me in, or to attempt to draw me in to some kind of big public beef where I'm expected to verbally defend myself or else look like a creep or a weirdo in front of like strangers at the grocery store. And it's inevitably going to lead to a fight because I'm going to have way more intelligent fucking comebacks than they're going to have. I'm going to be way quicker on my feet when it comes to the verbal abuse that we're slinging at each other. And they're going to get really pissed off. They're going to swing at me, and then I'm going to probably beat them to death, And I really am not trying to get arrested for like self-defense, even if I would get out like 6 hours later after the cameras show that they swung on me first, Not my idea of a good time. Fucking thing. For YouTube purposes, that was a joke. Okay? Satire, joke. You shouldn't do violence to people. Although violence in self-defense is always justified. That's both legally and morally. There we go. Keep begging on the internet. Thanks for the permission, Jeremy. Speaking of begging on the internet, if you guys want to make sure that your question gets answered or your question gets read, consider sending a super chat. I do read every single one as long as it doesn't violate TOS. What that's called, Jeremy, by the way, is a digital product. What they're paying for is the ability to say something in chat and have the streamer notice it and read their chat out loud. I make it very clear what you're paying for here, unlike a lot of streamers who just leave super chats open and up, and you have to kind of figure out through context clues what they do with them. I announce pretty clearly every 10 minutes or so what I do with my super chats. How hard is your day-to-day life? Not particularly hard. I mean, like, if you mean because I'm trans, honestly, like, the things that make my day-to-day life hard have way less to do with being trans and way more to do with just, like, being a working-class average American that doesn't have millions of dollars, that doesn't have a shit ton of land, that doesn't have the kinds of things that you need to have in this country to just be cushioned from any of the outgrowths of poverty and things like that, right? Those are the things that really make my life difficult. When it comes down to like transphobia and shit, I really don't ever deal with it in real life. I don't know if that's because I'm a pretty large person. I don't know if that's because I don't give off the vibes of somebody that is like a little, I don't know. I don't know what the reasoning is. I personally think that the reason is because people are just blusterous. You know, people really like to talk shit online, but when it comes right down to it, most people aren't trying to like get in a random fight with some random trans woman in Walmart because they have like hurt feelings about the idea of trans people. It's not most people's idea of a good time. You know, most people are not looking to spend their fucking Monday afternoon arguing with some trans bitch in the middle of Walmart because she chose to wear a dress as a trans woman. You know, not that fascinating a topic outside of the internet where you can find a bunch of other fucking sub-room temperature IQ morons to circle jerk about hating trans people with. If you can find that, then you found you a good time, at least according to some of the people that comment in here. But it's not as fun in real life where that trans person might be able to actually fucking respond to your bullshit. That's my theory. My theory is that people are pussies. People like to talk shit online and then not do anything in real life. Phoebe, got any tips on how to effectively stalk and harass Paul? No. Cummy nipples? That seems like a very specific question. Have I said something that implies I should? Like, whatever, you know? I don't know what to do with that. Is that crack? It's fucking dabs, kid. It's dabs, toddler. Man, 4 more days and YouTube purges fucking its roles of all children. Yay! 4 more days, baby. Just gotta make it 4 more days. All the little kids gonna have to be making new accounts, getting their fucking older siblings to fucking unlock their account and all this shit. Oh man, it's gonna be great. Watching the fallout from that affair is gonna be so fucking fun. That's what I was saying, the muse. That's what I don't know if you came in like halfway into the conversation or something, but what we were talking about is the fact that when I'm out in the world, when I'm out in real life, I don't get that hate. I don't encounter really any transphobia out in real life. The only time I ever encounter transphobia is when I engage with social media, and really, even then, the only time I encounter it is when I do these streams. That's pretty much it. I don't keep people around who are super fucking transphobic and bigoted, so there are two discords that I'm a part of. Well, I guess there are a couple more, but I'm not really like super involved with them. But there are like two or three discords that I'm a part of. Both of them are communities of allies. Both of them are full of people who are pro-trans, and I've got some Reddits that I pop into, and they're all either pro-trans or not politically focused at all. So I really don't encounter much like homophobia, transphobia, or really bigotry in general, like either out in the real world or even in like a lot of social media environments. You pretty much have to find one that's explicitly okay with that to find a lot of it. And one of the places that is explicitly okay with bigotry, at least, well, okay, maybe implicitly okay with it, is YouTube chat. It's just kind of accepted. YouTube has kind of like tacitly accepted the idea that its chats are going to be places full of bigoted Nazi bullshit. And it's not going to make any effort to block that kind of behavior. It's not going to make any effort to kind of moderate that kind of behavior on any sort of mass scale. It's pretty much just allowed it, and people know that at this point. And so I encounter it here where people feel like they're allowed to do it, right? When people feel like they're allowed to do it, and when their little screen of anonymity gives them this feeling like, oh, I'm a big Billy badass. I can say all kinds of mean shit about trans people now. Then that's when I encounter transphobia. But just out in the world, I don't encounter that shit. As far as me spending time outside, offline, with the screen off, when I woke up this morning, my phone was dead, and I charged it up, and I didn't turn my phone back on until like 5:30. I spent Now, to be fair, I woke up pretty late, but I spent like the 6 or 7 hours before I turned my phone on just doing shit around the house, being outside. I spent like probably 2 hours of it watering the garden and watering a part of the like yard basically that just desperately needs water on it. Yes, Glitch Dash. I did get your comment, and I meant to reply, but I totally forgot to. But I am keeping it in mind, and I do have your email at this point, and I will reach out. What plants do you have? I have all kinds of plants. Honestly, we have all kinds of plants here. We've got literally like endless amounts of plants, like tomatoes, strawberries, okra, sword beans, moonflowers, peppers, melons, squash, cucumbers, amaranth. Yeah, all kinds of shit. How long do you plan on being trans? Do you think it's just like a 5-minute escapade for me? Do you think I'm gonna like wake up one day and get sick of it and be like, I want to go back to being someone I'm not? you know, I want to go back to playing a bullshit role that I don't relate to at all. Like, unless like some kind of thing forces me to detransition, I'll be trans for the rest of my life. Just picked some cucumbers from my garden this morning. Of course, the fattest one went right up my butt. Man, cummy nipples. I'm starting to see why I don't see your chats and DFF chats much. No, I don't know. Why does that name sound familiar? Whatever. I'm probably just stoned. There's probably not even an association. You don't see me because the boys can't handle me, especially Paul. Cummy Nipples. Has your name always been Cummy Nipples, or wasn't that Amelia's Reddit name? Or am I misremembering? I feel like it was something Nipples. I'm trying to place you as a member of the community. That you're a DFF orbiter, I know. Exactly who you are, I can't remember. Because I feel like there was a DFF community member that was like heavily involved in the community for a long time named Cummy Nipples, but I'm also not sure if I'm misremembering. Because at this point, I can't trust a whole lot about my memory when it comes to like specific details about shit, unless it like involved some deeply personal element of my life. What's up, Riley? What is up? Member in the house. Make sure you guys sign up for my membership if you are interested in someday being able to watch some members only streams. As soon as I get 50 members, I'm going to start doing members only streams. That's going to be super fucking fun. It's going to be really fun. I'm going to announce it beforehand, but that's the goal. That's our fucking first membership goal, is 50 members to get to members only streams. No, my original YT name was Stoned Gentleman. Oh. So was I right about the Reddit thing? It's actually what you're supposed to be doing on a Saturday night, bro? What? There is no middle ground. Gender fluid, transgender, etc. is a mental disorder that needs to be professionally addressed. Copious Black, are you aware of the fact that, like transgenderism comes from a condition called gender dysphoria? Transitioning is the prescribed treatment for the condition known as gender dysphoria. So this is a problem that already has been professionally addressed by people way smarter and way better paid than you are. People called the Mayo Clinic, people called the National Institutes of Health, people called the fucking medical community of the Netherlands, people called the medical community of all of Western Europe, in fact. Like, how many fucking professional level medical institutions, how many well-respected medical institutions do I have to fucking rattle off before you accept that you've got a backwards and outdated idea of gender that comes from some adherence to a narrative that you don't want to confess because you recognize what a fucking slam dunk it is when your argument is associated with the narrative you're trying to push. So let's just be honest with each other. What's the narrative you're trying to push? Are you a Christian? Are you a Muslim? Are you like, what are you? You're probably not Jewish, because most Jews I've met are fucking pro-trans. So what are you? What narrative are you pushing? You don't need help, they do. Oh, I know, but I like to play with my food a little bit. I like to challenge these people. I like to challenge them to be their best and most intelligent selves. Jesus loves all, even trans people. I know, he told me so. Cummy Nipples, why are you being so catty about the question I've asked you like 2 or 3 times now? Just answer it, yes or no. That's literally all you have to say. Isn't your fucking username now taken from Amelia's old Reddit account? Just literally, just help me so that I remember, so that I'm not a fucking stoned dumbass that doesn't know shit, okay? Help me out here. As fun as it may be for you to watch me struggle, motherfucker, I don't appreciate it, okay? Remind me, or your bitch ass is banned. No, I'm kidding. I'm not Paul, but forgive me, Paul, if you see this. I'm kidding. It's a joke. Oh, okay. No, it's not. Oh, well. Whatever. Stoned dumbass as charged, I guess. You probably answered and YouTube just caught it for some dumbass fucking reason. I don't know. YouTube is fucking bullshit when it comes to like letting comments just come up naturally as they are typed in. I don't know why it's like that, but it is. Because I'll see totally innocuous comments just get snipped sometimes. I had somebody try to send me a $10 super chat the other day, and it just didn't go through. It took money out of their account, but it didn't show up. And they ended up getting a refund from YouTube, but still, it's like, what the fuck, man? Figure out your fucking bullshit. I just realized one side of my ribs is more tilted than the other. If you really start analyzing your body, you can find all kinds of weird discrepancies, right? We are semi, what's the word for it? There are creatures like there's different like names for creatures that are symmetrical versus bilateral symmetry. Is that what I'm thinking of? I can't remember the specific term, but human beings are like, in theory, symmetrical creatures, but if you really start analyzing your body, you'll start to see all kinds of weird examples of it not exactly being right. For example, most people's legs are not the exact same length. In fact, nobody's legs are exactly the same length. Pretty much everybody has one leg that's a little bit shorter, and in some people it's incredibly pronounced. Like, for example, my left leg is almost like a full inch fucking longer than my right leg. Probably not like a full inch, but it's at least like a half inch longer than my right leg. And I'll notice it sometimes when I'm standing. You know, like if I try to stand perfectly straight and really try to even out my hips, I can pull up my right foot off the ground just a little bit. So, human bodies are strange things, you know. They don't work exactly as described all the time. Anyway, Coming Nipples, what do you make of the hater sub disappearing, exploding, imploding, whatever you want to call it? r/enough Paulsego spam is Gorn. And I think that is fucking hilarious. I think it's the funniest fucking thing that has happened in this entire fucking exchange. Because it is the culmination of a fucking prediction that our mutual interest, Paulsego, made a couple of months ago. There's always a bigger and smaller boob. Exactly, Desi. There's always there's usually always like a bigger and / smaller nipple, honestly. What happened? I'm not too familiar with that sub. Oh, well, shoot. I assumed Coming Nipples that just because, I honestly assumed because I thought I recognized your name around some of the hater subs or something. I thought you would be, but I don't know. I don't know exactly what happened. I just know that I don't exactly keep a tight watch over there, but I keep an eye on those subs because I have a feeling at some point one of them is going to dox me. And I want to make sure that I can report that post, have it taken down, or report that sub and have it taken down as soon as possible after that happens. So I keep a close eye on those subs. I check them probably 3 or 4 times a day. I don't post over there anymore, and I'm never going to post over there again because I think they're a bunch of fucking morons that don't deserve my attention. But I do keep an eye on them. I see what they're up to. I screenshot the most interesting posts and interesting little comments and things like that. I'm keeping a little running record of things going on over there. And from what I can gather, somebody got mad at somebody else, the mod team, and I'm talking about the mod team on r/enough Paulsego spam. Somebody got mad at somebody else. The old owner of that sub apparently turned out to be untrustworthy with the powers of modship and started doing a bunch of shit that the community didn't like, and then this war happened. I don't really understand the finer details of it. You'd have to have one of them explain, but long story short, Alchemist Soil and one of the other dorks from the hater communities created yet another. So this is a sixth now, I think, hater sub entirely dedicated to hating on DFF and Paul in particular. They've created another one, and this one, literally, its first. Let's go through. It's the posts on this new hater sub, right? This new hater sub that has come out of this drama. Everybody's just saying gay. Nice. I like it. I'm cool with that. Anyway, but fuck, you motherfuckers got me off my fucking game. Anyway, I know that I'm already on their minds, on all of their minds, because literally one of the first posts over there, there's 3 posts that are super publicly visible when I go over there and visit it on my main account and my alt account, or one of my alt accounts. When I go over there and visit those subs on both of them, there are 2, there are 3 visible posts right now. Maybe there are more since the last time I checked, like an hour and a half before starting this. But whatever. It was like an hour and a half ago. I don't know if it was like that long before starting this, honestly, because time is a weird thing that I don't understand. I don't pretend to understand it. But anyway, 2 of them are memes. 2 of the posts on this new hater sub, and literally the third post, the most recent post on there, is a transcript of everything I've ever said on my channel. Talk about living rent-free in a motherfucker's head, dude. Literally, I couldn't be more honored. I consider it a tremendous honor that I have already cemented myself in their heads as an object of contention. They're going to be arguing with me, sending people my way, and helping to elevate my platform for the next 10 years, and I'm loving it. Brett Keane made all those DFF hate subs, didn't he? No. You think Brett Keane is trying to fuck? No, cummy nipples. You're not being serious, are you? You think Brett motherfucking Keane has nearly enough fucking time and effort he wants to spend away from fucking Skyrim Online or whatever it's called to do that type of shit? Think about this, cummy nipples. We know what Brett Keane takes seriously. We know what he prioritizes in life. What does Brett Keane prioritize and need in life? Well, number one, he prioritizes his own need to fucking exist, to talk, to suck up from other people, you know? We know that that is a priority in his life. What is the second priority? Taking substances, like getting high and drunk, basically, which I'm all about, and spending literally all day long either making shitty YouTube videos that no one wants to watch or playing a shitty fucking video game that hardly anybody plays anymore. Maybe he's moved on to a modern game now. I don't know. But that's what Brett Keane prioritizes. There's not a whole lot of time in that schedule for making a bunch of hater subs and participating in them and engaging in all this drama. The Manatee doesn't do that kind of thing anymore. I am pretty fucking sure that if you could look into the life of Brett Keane, that almost all of his time is divided squarely between eating, shitting, sleeping, playing video games, and making very, very low quality, heavily AI edited and influenced videos that 200 people watch if he's super lucky. Absolutely. I think Brett craves the attention of TJ. Paul said his hate boner is most powerful for him. Plus, he has all the time in the world when he's not strangling Doran. Yeah, no, I don't buy it, cummy nipples. I don't buy it. And honestly, you know what? The dudes on the fucking hater subs are gonna come over this, but I'm just gonna say it. the dudes involved with these hater subs at the highest level, they type way too intelligently to be Brett Keane. They don't type like they're morons. I mean, they do in a sense because they're constantly saying dumbass shit, but they don't type like somebody who's never read a book before, like somebody who's never written a fucking book report before, you know? Brett Keane types like he's fucking 14 years old. Brett Keane types like he doesn't give a shit about nothing. Even when he tries to type well, he has a very characteristic writing style that makes his participation in any community immediately obvious if you know what to look for. Man does not believe in paragraphs. Man does not believe in fucking proper punctuation. Man thinks fucking sentences take way, 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 way longer than they actually do. Man will fucking loop together 7 different thoughts into one sentence and pretend that they all make sense enough to be continued into one continuous narrative, completely unbroken by periods and commas and shit like that. No, trust me. Brett Keane is not behind a single one of these hater communities. No, these are super fans of the variety that actually have enough like access or whatever to like mommy's money or their partner's money or whatever to occasionally fucking super chat, to continuously pay for the Patreon, because it came out today or yesterday that apparently one of these dudes has been leaking Patreon content to a growing community of pirates for like 5 years or some shit. Brett Keane employs ChatGPT or some AI to write his insults out for him. I'm kidding, but I legit see him doing that unironically. Well, Brett Keane definitely uses AI super heavily. Do I think Brett Keane is sly enough to keep ChatGPT open and to like furiously take notes while people are talking or interacting? Like maybe he does that on online interactions, and maybe, but I just don't see it. I don't see it. See, in order to believe that Brett Keane was like engaging ChatGPT to write out his comments for him after giving ChatGPT a broken English Brett Keane, like a Keenglish version of it, right? I just don't buy it, because in order to believe that, I would have to believe that Brett Keane sees a problem in the way he types and presents himself. He doesn't. Brett Keane thinks he flies under the radar. Brett Keane is a moron who doesn't see his own inability to spell, type, or make grammatically correct sentences. He doesn't see that as a problem. He doesn't register that that's a big giant tell for his participation in communities. So I seriously doubt that he has figured that out. Like he didn't figure it out back in 2015 and 2016 when he was a lot younger, and you know, well, that's basically all you can say about him. Nothing else really has changed. He was a lot younger, you know. You would think if he was going to figure it out, it would be before he had 10 more years of addling his brain with constant drunkenness. But who the fuck knows? Maybe he has finally wised up. I mean, he finally wised up to the fact that nobody on earth wants to look at his dumb fat ass talk to a camera, his unkempt looking motherfucking ass, you know? He's not nearly attractive enough to make up for the fact that he just looks like a disaster. Ay. Isn't he an author also? What's the subreddit called? Oh, the subreddit we're talking about is not even existent anymore. It was called r/enough Paulsego spam. But if you go over there now, it's literally just a wasteland. It says that this channel has been hidden. Only members that are invited can join. So it's been nuked. It's been privated and shit. I'm sure that maybe with the right amount of social engineering, I could probably make my way onto it. But from my understanding, all the posts have been deleted off of it anyway. So it's just privated now. I don't know exactly under what auspices it was nuked, but it was nuked. Aren't you one to talk about looking like a disaster? I look like way less of a disaster than Brett Keane ever looked. I forgive you for not understanding the basis of comparison. I understand, you know? Like, I'm a pretty ugly motherfucker myself. I'm not exactly the most kempt person on YouTube. But trust me, I am in a way better I'm in a way better state of cleanliness and self-keeping than Brett Keane ever was. r/enough Paulsego spam. This is low-key liberalism of ultra. I take umbrage with that, my friend. I'm not a liberal. I'm a leftist. I don't believe in capitalism. I don't believe that the army is going to save us. I don't believe that the police are the most important thing standing between the people and criminality. 'Cause baby, I'm an anarchist. You're a spineless liberal. We marched together for the 8-hour day and held hands in the streets of Seattle. But when it came time to throw bricks through that Starbucks window, you left me all alone, all alone. Through the worst of times, through the best of times, through Nixon and through Bush. Damn it, I gotta replug my phone up. It came unplugged for some reason. You're telling me those guys were serious? Oh, dude, the fucking hater subs? Serious as a heart attack. I mean, serious about being morons, but serious nonetheless. I want to hear more about this. How did the drama start? Oh, man. Oh, boy. I don't want to retell this story. I feel like I don't even know exactly where it begins, to be honest with you. Where it begins is that in 2015, I'm not even kidding you, this is a 10-year-old drama. If we're being completely honest, if we want to take it down to the roots of the fucking thing, we're talking about 2015, okay? It's 2015. Paulsego gets brought on as a full-time member of the Drunken Peasants. Paulsego is a controversial figure. He's pretty much always been known to generate a little controversy even before this, right? He had been doing YouTube as a hobby for almost 10 years by that point, started doing it professionally in 2015, and the controversial nature of his positions and his personality and presence continued on DP. And back in 2015, Paul started to gather what we now refer to as a Snarker community around him. By we, I mean people who know about Snarker communities. I'm not saying that the DFF community or the DP community are the only ones who, okay, I just want to clear that. But what we now understand to be a Snarker community started to evolve around Paulsego, and it continued through the ages. Things got I would argue that things actually got worse after the split from DP because people continued to find Paul controversial and continued to disagree with his takes sometimes, but they now felt emboldened in a way that they perhaps hadn't in DP days because they were both emboldened but limited, right? Because they couldn't say anything that was going to get Paul fired because he was a co-owner of the business. But that also meant that nothing they did really mattered on that fundamental level. And so that they could start to get really fucking nutty with it. Things continued on this same vein. Controversy. Why do I keep fucking... I sound like I have a lisp. Controversy after controversy happens and time passes, right? None of the controversies really stick ultimately or have any real meaning beyond the community, but they continue. And I think the iteration of the drama that has coalesced into this subreddit exploding probably started the first time Paulsego had a conversation with Vosh. It was during that conversation that the controversy of Paulsego was really reignited for the first time. people who hadn't been exposed to Paul's politics yet were suddenly exposed to his politics. Some of them came over. Some of them came over as people who liked. Some of them came over as people who disliked but were interested. And a few of them came over as people who were interested and hateful. And fast forward a few years and a few more appearances with other leftists and other people on YouTube, and you get to December of 2024. Yeah, December of 2024. At which point, a user named Alchemist Soil posts a video here on YouTube called "A Person Who Is Not Paul," or something like that. Someone who is not Paul. And that video is basically like an hour and a half of some dork, some anonymous dork, and his little sissy fucking boyfriend going over like just months and months and months worth of posts from Paul's wife and her Reddit account. They never outright say in the video that it is definitely Paul's wife, but they make it incredibly obvious that that's who they're saying. You know, they imply it heavily throughout the video. And the whole point of the video is basically quote-unquote revenge for Paul saying something untoward about the diary of Anne Frank. Specifically what Paul said, he made a joke about Anne Frank being a myth, and about her not writing the diary, he made a joke about the diary not being real, but when he clarified his position and actually said what he really believed outside of the kayfabe, it was, I don't think that Anne Frank wrote the diary that everybody knows and loves. I think that what was his name? Was it Milo Frank? I can't remember the dude. Otto Frank, yeah. He believes that Otto Frank rewrote the diary in a way that he found more favorable, and that better suited the climate at the time when he was writing it or releasing it, and that more modern versions of the diary have contained more writings that prove that the first diary was editorialized. He never denied that Anne Frank wrote a diary. He never denied that Anne Frank existed, but Alchemist Soil framed the entire nature of their dispute as being started by Paul having this borderline Holocaust denialist position on Anne Frank, when in fact he never believed anything of the sort. The exchanges continued. Paul would occasionally respond to him in a video for a second and just, like, you know, dismiss it with the characteristic grace of someone who's dealt with a million controversies before. And eventually, people kept begging Paul to have a debate, quote unquote, with Alchemist Soil, and he hit me up while I was watching a stream of his, and he shouted me out in the chat, was like, "Hey, would you mind hosting a debate between me and Alchemist Soil?" Because I'd had him on my channel not long after the shit he did with Paul, because it was a real big controversy, because he basically doxed where Paul was moving to, a bunch of information about Paul's love life and shit like that, revealed all this shit to the community. And so I had a conversation with this guy. Paul asked if I could coordinate a conversation between Alchemist Soil and him. I was like, hell yeah, sounds fun. And in the wake of that, shit started really blowing up, because a bunch of people that were haters on those fucking hater subs saw what a pathetic fucking debate bro Alchemist Soil is. A lot of people recognized that what you're dealing with is a parasocial, terminally online moron that thinks they know a bunch of shit about politics because they're able to autistically spend hours pouring through fucking news articles, but isn't able to spend hours pouring through theory, isn't able to spend hours pouring through documentaries, isn't able to spend hours pouring through videos explaining people's actual positions. Has to watch that at 2 times speed, but has literally just hours and hours of time to autistically sort through information in order to bolster his neoliberal talking points. A lot of people saw that for what it was and decided to leave the subreddits in the wake of that. A lot of people decided to double down on their efforts and to start defending some of the reprehensible shit Alchemist Soil was doing, and that led to a little bit of a, I guess what you could call some gay ops from Paul. And he was able to successfully goad that community into self-implosion by threatening to release just pictures. That's it. Just threatening too. Just threatened to release pictures and names, and that's it. No addresses, no phone numbers, no nothing like that. Just names and fucking pictures. What do you look like? What is your name? Who are you really? That was all of it. That's literally all it took for for the sub fucking blow up for a day or two, then come back online, and now it's been nuked completely. So there you go. That's the whole fucking rundown of the drama. Phoebe or the live chat moderators, what do you think about people who lean right and have typical right-leaning traditionalist views, but also don't like Israel? I mean, I'm glad for any ally I have in a shitty conflict like this. You know, I don't really care. Like, if you voted Trump, but you're still anti-Israeli imperialism and shit like that, I consider you an ally on that issue, if nothing else. You know, even if we don't agree on socialized medicine, even if we don't agree on this, that, or the other thing, people like you are important for like consensus to be had on these broad topics, you know, because like the fact of it is, whether you're right wing, left wing, I don't think it matters. Like, the genocide in Israel is clear and obvious. The genocide that's going on at the hands of the Israelis towards the people of Gaza is just plain and obvious. The occupation plans that they've established and published, that the intended results of that are just plain and obvious. This shit is something we need to start agreeing across party lines on. Hold on. I gotta charge up my vape a little bit. Personally, I see myself as a centrist. I don't really know what to believe, but I honestly just want the best for everyone. I think a lot of people feel like they're in that same kind of position. And I mean, you don't have to know exactly what you believe. You know, that's the great thing about politics, is that to some degree, you know, like, to some degree, there's room for not knowing. And not knowing your exact position in a given issue allows you to have a more open mind about it. So there are benefits to that, you know? Yeah, I think most people want what's best for everyone. The problem comes when you start considering what is best and who is everyone, you know? What does it mean to guarantee the best for everyone? A lot of people have a very different idea of seeing that through. You know, a lot of people's idea of doing the best for everyone means giving people the maximum ability to exploit via capitalism, giving people the maximum ability to use the market to manipulate things in their favor. To some people, that's doing the best for everybody, because that gives everybody the opportunity to get in a position where they're fucking other people over and getting rich off the back of it. And there are people like me who say that taking care of everyone and doing what's best for everybody involves, like, I don't know, actually doing what's best for everybody. So coming up with positions and ideas and policies that help people, that lead to more successful health outcomes in the public space. Do they get paid or do they do it for fun? No, I can't afford to pay my mods, but it's also not like a job that comes with responsibilities or anything like that. I basically just do it to make sure somebody can't get banned, and I do it to give somebody that I trust the ability to help me like weed out the chat and make it a more readable place. Basically, anyone who prioritizes limited government intervention in the economy, emphasizes personal responsibility, advocates for strong national defense, favors free market capitalism. Yeah, you know, I get the definition of centrist, but I just disagree with the ideals of it. You know. I don't think that it is necessarily a good goal to strive for strong national defense or free market economics. In fact, I think that the idea of free market economics kind of flies in the face of taking care of everyone. Because if you allow free market economics to be the way that you determine who gets a house, you end up with millions of homeless people, because you end up with a housing market that's not based around making sure that people can get a house. It's based around profit. Because of course it is, because it's a market. You have to take that out of the market to make sure that everyone can actually get housing. Otherwise, there's a financial incentive to price at least some people out of housing. Oh, you're fine, Glitch Dash. I will send you an email after I get done with this stream, and we will coordinate through phone and everything. Most conservatives don't really support small government anymore like they claim to, but not really. Yeah, I mean, conservatives want small government when it comes to regulations on big business and things like that, and they want big, big, big government when it comes to subsidizing those same corporations, big government bailouts and handouts to corporations and the business side of America. They want big, illustrious contracts with big military contractors and suppliers and things like that. They like big government when it comes to a strong national defense, as that person put it. You know, they want big army, big navy, the biggest you can have. They're perfectly fine with big government in the areas where they want it, but they cry, whine, and bitch all day long about small government when it comes to areas that they want the ability to fuck people over in. In my opinion, that's what it all comes down to. Why does the businessman oppose a regulation? Well, because it's going to make his business more expensive to run, which means he gets to make less money, or he has to pay his workers less, which makes it less easy to manage them. So it's just like a trade-off he doesn't want to have to do. He doesn't want to have to cut into his bottom line. I don't support big government. Meanwhile, trying to make every Trump tweet a law. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. It's a ridiculous hypocrisy that you pretty much only find with hardline conservatives. What's up, Jareth? What's up, what's up, what's up? Nothing much. Just sitting here, taking dabs, talking to the chat, bitching at my lighter because it doesn't want to work properly. Oh, man, I really need one of those lighters with the adjustable flame. Yeah, I knew you meant big government. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the contradiction you have to look out for with the conservative, is that they will claim to want small government, but then actively work against the interests of a smaller government. It's obvious you are leftist and maybe biased, but seriously though, how would you say I figure out my political values? I agree with things on both sides. It feels to me both sides don't care about us. Well, when it comes to electoral politics, they don't. When it comes to like electoral politics, like the politicians that we send up there, they don't. That's the thing. Yeah, I'm leftist, but I'm not a Democrat, because I recognize that the Democrats and Republicans, like the people who actually go up there and make the big bucks to like govern the people, They don't really do much of that. They do a whole lot of corporate handouts. They do a whole lot of subsidizing corporate America. They do a whole lot of bullshit to make it harder for people to do this, that, or the other thing. But they don't really do a whole lot of like maintaining the people and acting in their best interests. And that's because the Republican Party and the Democratic Party are the two political parties that are allowed to exist here in America by the bureaucracy. And the American people haven't stepped up in a big enough way yet to deprive that bureaucracy, to deprive that bourgeoisie, essentially, if you'll forgive me some Marxist terminology. We haven't come together in a big enough way to oppose that bourgeoisie, to oppose that aristocracy, and make it so that the people's will is what's being done in the state houses. You know, and that's what it's going to take. It's going to take people realizing, people on both sides, the voting public. It's going to take the voting public realizing that the Democrats don't give a fuck about us, the Republicans don't give a fuck about us, and it's time to pursue some kind of third option, either an independent movement, a third party, something like that. Once people realize that, it'll be pretty fucking easy to see what kind of policies and positions people really need to get behind in order to improve America. And there's already many of them that are being discussed. It's just that they're not discussed at the fucking highest levels of our government. You know, like the American people know what the problems are. We bitch about them all the time. We just don't look at them as problems that can be solved through politics anymore, because we have been successfully propagandized to believe that these are just things that naturally happen, that this has nothing to do with any political decision. There's no politician you can vote for that's going to improve the sidewalks, when in fact it's just that very thing that local politicians are responsible for. Americans have been trained to accept ineptitude and decrepitude in their politicians and in their cities, respectively, because we cannot conceive of it being any better. We have been successfully propagandized to in accepting those things. There is something we can do, though. That's the thing. That's the thing that gets me. People will bitch all day long about the two-party system, and they'll get angry about it, and they'll talk about how it seems like both sides are fucking us over, and they're like, I really don't know what to do. And then I point out that, well, it's going to take a third option or a third party, an independent movement, something like that. And then everybody says, they go back to the old refrain that comes from their electoralist days, from the days when they just idly voted for whatever fucking politician came on the card they were given, right? You're going through this old refrain that you've heard a million times, but actually critically think about it. Is there any actual reason why a third party couldn't win if that was what people voted for? No, there isn't. No, and in fact, if something like that happened, if let's just say half of America, because I believe you could actually get half of all eligible voters to vote for a third party or an independent movement at this point in time. Let's say you got half of Americans to vote for that politician or that third party, and they weren't the ones who got duly elected, you would have riots in the streets. They would be forced to recount the election. There would be a giant fucking protest movement that evolves out of that, and people would not stay out of the state houses until something got done about that, and the people that were duly elected were put into power. But it would take something like that. But that's what it's going to take to get us out of this situation. Because the Democratic Party is never going to bring universal health care to a vote. The Republican Party is never going to bring massive infrastructure renewal and high-speed rail to a vote. The Democratic Party is never going to bring abortion rights to a vote. The Republican Party is never going to bring the legalization of cannabis to a vote. The Democratic Party is never going to bring the outlawing of redlining and shit like that to a vote. The Republican Party is never going to bring, a food stipend to a vote. These parties are not interested in doing things that would actually help us. They're interested in making more money. It's crazy how poor people who are the most impacted by taxes get jailed for tax evasion, but like rich people who are the least impacted by taxes, they can just go about without paying. Well, that's because the fucking tax books are all written for them. The tax books are all written for and by them. So yeah, of course the fucking rich people don't get fucked over in the tax system, especially not here in America. Here in America, you don't pay taxes if you're a rich person. You pay accountants. Way cheaper than taxes. You pay your accountant $100 grand a year, and they save you $2 million in taxes. Hell yeah, sounds like a hell of a deal. You might even end up paying that motherfucker $500 grand a year because they're just so good at their job, saving you so much money. And you know what the bitch of it is? That accountant has an accountant that they use to fucking keep their taxes from ever getting touched. It's why we need a national referendum. I tend to agree. I don't know how achievable that is, but I tend to agree. Sometimes the court comes in and is like, let's redraw it. Yeah, we need national reform in this country for a whole bunch of shit. Not just when it comes to redlining, not just when it comes to any of these things, but like we really do need, like, we need big movement on this shit. One executive order could allow a national referendum because we are a republic. Yeah, there you go. Oh no. Oh fuck. Why did I say that out loud? Oh no. Oh no. You know what the line is going to be from left-leaning libs in this next election cycle? Vote, and you know what a big campaign promise is going to be in 2028? I can already smell it on the air. When you just said that, I smell it in that comment. You smell that? It smells like lib bullshit. Okay, you ready for it? Left-leaning libs in the lead up to the 28 election are going to be claiming that you need to vote for the Democratic Party candidate so that they can declare a referendum by executive order. And I assume you mean a referendum to end the Electoral College or what? Like a referendum for what? What also sucks is how enriched Israel is, and our government. Don't flame me if I'm wrong, but that's what I've observed. Oh, dude, I'm not going to flame you at all. You're 100% right. Israel is intimately involved with the American government, and not just at the fucking like high tier, like government contract level or whatever. No, Israel is involved in the training of many places police forces. Israel has deep ties to the defense industry. I mean, there's all kinds of defense contractors who have factories in Israel. All kinds of military production whose chain of production starts in Israel. All kinds of R&D that is used by American and Israeli firms that starts in Israel. So yeah. What's cooking up, my fellow queers and queerettes? Nothing much, just sitting here chilling, taking dabs, The huge, one might say. The huge, No, to allow an actual national referendum. Some states have it, but we don't have it at all at the national level. That's how Colorado legalized weed. Oh, okay. So wait, a president's gonna... Yeah, see? I guarantee you this is going to be a line that people are going to tell us in 2028, but I don't think it's going to work because I don't think a president's ever going to do it. I think you're right that they could. Like, a president could decide, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do the responsible thing, and I'm going to call a national referendum. Once again, a referendum on having a referendum, I don't think that's what you mean. I think you mean that a president would call a national referendum on something, but I don't know. I guess you'd have to explain what you're fucking advocating for more for me to really know whether or not I can make this prediction. Because I think I understand what you're trying to say, but I'm not 100% sure. Because, like, I know what a state referendum is, I know what a ballot referendum is, and that's like a vote on some kind of ballot initiative or something like that. But when I asked what would the national referendum be on, you said no, just on having an actual referendum. And so that makes me kind of confused because I feel like the question remains unanswered. What's y'all's thoughts on just replacing the government with a national referendum? Like, I know I'm just an anarchist and probably dumb, but, like, don't you think that would work? It's worked before. Um, I do think that direct democracy does work better than people give it credit for. I don't know that it would be a great solution for America immediately, but yeah, like, ow, I'm down to try. Fuck, ow, 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 ow. BRB. Oh. Shit, I meant to look for something while I was out there. But to do that, I'm gonna need this. Ugh. Well, shit. Oh, I guess we can use this. I can't use that one. Maybe I can use this one? Yeah. Okay. Guess what we found? We found another torch that'll hopefully be better for taking fat ribs. Okay. Drugs. Not quite. More like accoutrements to drugs. Oh shit. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Now we're fucking cooking. Now we're cooking with gas. Hell yeah. Oh, I couldn't be happier, y'all. Oh, man. Don't buy these torches. They're shitty. Buy this one instead. The people of the USA cannot do a federal referendum. It's on the Constitution. A president could create a subcommittee which allows citizens to create referendums which could become law, like executive orders. Yeah, see, Furidius, that just sounds like too many fucking steps. Like first we have to get a president elected who wants to do that, you know? Like first we have to get that, and maybe that'll be a line, but I thought you were talking about a far simpler process. Like you're talking about a process to create the process by which people would do this, but I really don't think that needs to be created. I think like the American fucking system, honestly, I think could work pretty well as it is to provide legislation that the American people really want. It was certainly more responsive to our demands and desires like 50, 60, 70, 100 years ago, right? It used to be way more responsive to American needs, desires, wants, and needs and all that shit, right? But now it's not. And I say the reason for that is because of lobbying. I think the reason for that is, well, I think it's mainly lobbying, honestly. I think it's lobbying and the allowing of government and corporation to become so intermingled in this country. We have allowed Mussolini's definition of fascism to take over. So is it really any surprise that American politicians don't listen to Americans when it comes to drafting new legislation and shit like that? So, you know, in order to... This is one of those problems, right, where subverting that, I mean, it just seems like we could do... It seems like we could subvert that in a way that would also provide us instantly with the platform to subvert a lot of the other fucking bullshit results of that ongoing rot. Rather than trying to get someone elected who plans on allowing us to try to subvert it at some point in the future and creating some kind of system that can be rigged from the inside or something like that. Fuck that. We need a whole new crop of people. Because if it's the old fucking crop, if it's a Democrat that gets in office, I don't know that I can trust whatever subcommittee they set up that allows citizens to bring legislation to the floor. I don't know that I'll trust that. I don't know that you could trust that. So if we get enough people supporting it and voting candidates who support it, we could get a new constitutional amendment that allows national referendums. Also, I hope if that happens, I hope that there's just a poll where the people vote on if they want to make a national referendum about an issue. I would hope so too. I mean, honestly, I think an optimal society in my eyes would have voting, not just internet voting, but app voting. I think that a well-functioning, well-oiled democracy should make it incredibly easy to participate in self-governance. I think it should be incredibly easy. I think that you should be able to vote from your phone. I think you should be able to vote early if you want to. I think that you should be able to contact your legislators directly through that app. They don't necessarily have to get back in touch with you, but I think you should have the right to be able to contact them if you want to. Oh my God, yes. This is the torch that I used the whole time I was on the road, and it does suck up gas quick. but it also heats your fucking piece up quick. Hell yeah. Look at that. Oh my god, nice and hot. I love it when Biden was talking about a new generation and Kamala Harris was like 61. I know. A new generation in the Democratic Party means people who are 60 fucking 1 years old. Think about that. Just think about that rot in and of itself. The Democratic Party has become such an outdated, old-timey institution that there's not a motherfucker in that party that they could tap that's in their 30s or 40s. Maybe some of them will be next time, but I don't think it's going to help them much, honestly. They'd have to do a lot of stuff to have a website for voting that only has like ability to access from America. You'd have to like give so much information. It would work. It would work. You would have to sign up using your American Social Security number, and you would only be allowed one account, etc., etc. If you lost access to your account, you'd have to go to the Social Security Administration or something like that, or the voting office, and file some paperwork, or you'd have to contact them through phone or through the app or something like that. But I think it'd be way simpler than people give it credit for. Online voting would be no more complicated than regular in-person voting, and honestly, even if it was a little more complicated, I'd say it would be worth it to have a system of fucking voting that's easier, that encourages more participation, because you can't really have it. I heard this great quote from somebody. I can't remember the dude's name, but he was in this little interview was in a Michael Moore documentary. I think it was Fahrenheit 11/9. It was either Fahrenheit 9/11 or 11/9, and I can't remember which one. But he talks about how democracy in America isn't a state of being. It's a goal to aspire to. It's something we're reaching for. It's something that we aspire to. It's not something we've achieved fully. And the examples he used was, well, black people and women couldn't really effectively vote until the 1960s. I mean, sure, women technically got the vote in the 1930s or 20s or something like that, and black people technically got the right to vote in the fucking wake of the Civil War, but they didn't actually get the right to vote meaningfully until the 1960s. If black people are prevented from voting, it's not really a democracy. If women are prevented from voting, it's not really a democracy. That's the examples that that dude gives in the documentary. I would use the example of people being currently disenfranchised due to felonies, people being disenfranchised just because voting is a complicated system that's made pointlessly more complicated in some states in order to disenfranchise people. Like weed, so much funding is dedicated for multiple agencies and local for nothing. In reality, it's just tax loss. People are going to drive or work high. The ones doing it are doing it. Oh, now I get what you're saying. Yeah, I get what you're saying now. Yeah. Yeah, it 100% is tax loss. If you're talking about weed enforcement and then that being just like a net negative, yeah, it's literally throwing tax dollars down the fucking piss hole for a non-problem that nobody needs a solution to. Not only that, but people are going to drive or work high. Number one, there are plenty of jobs you can work high. There are plenty of jobs you can work high. Don't talk to me. I was a fucking Taco Bell employee, okay? Don't at me. I know for a fact you can work high. Certain jobs. As far as driving high, they have done studies on it, and you are fucking way safer to drive high than you are drunk. Now, neither of them is going to be the same as driving sober. Driving sober always has the highest results in driving tests, but a person, like maximum impairment on weed, like I guess not for everybody, but for the average person, maximum impairment on of weed while driving looks like being a little more prone to error, a little bit. You're not swerving all over the road. You're not losing your ability to focus on speed. Like, the main reason why somebody who's high will get into a crash is because they get distracted by something, or, I mean, distraction would be the biggest one, honestly, more than anything. But there can also be like a perceptual difference, right? Like, being high can kind of change the way you perceive speed. It can alter your vision in ways where it's not causing any hallucinations, but it's kind of changing the way you perceive things as being farther or closer, right? It can kind of fuck with your sense of depth perception a little bit. But like, the studies have shown that you're safer on weed than you are on fucking booze when it comes to driving, and we're not planning on criminalizing booze. In fact, there are plenty of places where it's legal to both buy booze and drink it on premises. Plenty of places. They're called bars. They're all over America. Every little small town in this country has at least one. Every little small town over 4,000 people in this fucking country has at least one if they're allowed to have it. I love to start yapping and speaking nonsense like usual, but by the gods, my arms are aching and killing me. I'm sorry, Elliot. I would never advise driving impaired, and I 100% agree on increasing penalties if you were caught doing so. I mean, personally, I'm not advocating for anyone to drive impaired. I don't think it's right to do. I think that sober driving is the best driving, right? I get that. But I'm just saying that statistically, scientifically speaking, you are not as impaired if you're fucking high as you are if you are fucking drunk. I'm really just steel manning your argument. I'm just pointing out that weed legalization is no more dangerous, and in fact stands to be a lot less dangerous than the legalization of alcohol, which I also support. I think it's very important that our rhetoric is, if alcohol isn't banned, cannabis shouldn't be either. Not, if we're going to ban cannabis, let's ban alcohol. There's a reason I don't use that turn of phrase to describe my position on this anymore, and it's because I think it's a little bit dangerous to do so. Not dangerous in the sense of it's going to hurt someone's life or something like that, but I think it encourages people to look at the matter of governance as a matter of like banning things and legalizing things and just like determining what people can and can't do, and I'm not about that. Like, I consider myself an anarchist in the long term, and I think that people should have the right to do drugs if they want to do drugs, frankly. I really think the world would be a lot fucking more functional if people, even this dysfunctional world we have right now, even if you changed nothing except ended the war on drugs in every Western country, I think that honestly, that's one of the solutions we could fucking bust out to make capitalism keep going for another 200 years despite the clear signs of collapse. Because you know what? People can put up with immense amounts of bullshit on drugs. Just frankly, but even if we're going to improve the world at the same time, which I think we should, obviously, I think that should be like a consistent goal, is making things better, making it so that people are less inspired and have less desire to do drugs. But I think there's always going to be some desire, because part of the desire to do drugs is just to have a fun time. There are plenty of people who do drugs that don't have any fucking medical debt to escape, that they don't have any, like, their real life is fucking full of like there are super rich people who do drugs, which tells me that there are people whose lives are taken care of that still like to get high. But it's also true that people that are trying to cope with a horrible fucking life, people that are trying to cope with difficult circumstances and things like that, are also very apt to use drugs, because it's a way that you can directly turn your money into meaningful, accessible pleasure. Like, if we're talking about what the most dangerous drug is, caffeine is probably even more dangerous than weed. Oh yeah, 100%. Caffeine is more dangerous than weed. Caffeine actually can kill you in way lower doses than weed can. In order to die from weed, you would have to smoke like a fucking bale of weed. You would have to smoke like a bale of the highest strength weed in the land. And even then, it's like a 50 whether you're not die from that. But you'd probably die from the smoke inhalation long before you ever died from the THC content. If you wanted to die from THC, you would need to probably drink several cups of Rick Simpson oil or something like that. I work in an industry that I get randomly drug tested, but actively drive 200 miles in a commercial vehicle every day. No issue if anyone comes in hungover or is drunk. Yeah, that is incomprehensible to me. Like, honestly, like, especially if we're talking commercial drivers, I would way rather like find out that a trucker I know is a stoner than to find out that they're a fucking drunk. Because you know what? I've seen enough stuff. Like, I'm just gonna say it. I have ridden with enough people that I knew for a fact were stoned while we were driving, or who were getting more stoned while we were driving, and they drove perfectly fucking fine. And one of those same people, I also witnessed them driving drunk once because I stupidly decided, because I was drunk too, I stupidly decided to get in the car with them to go on this fucking mission, right? To get some Taco Bell because we were all crossfaded and we really wanted some. We ended up getting pulled over because he was kind of driving kind of crazy. He was speeding a little bit. He was swerving, not bad, but kind of weaving a little bit, as they say. Not super hard swerves, not fishtailing, nothing like that, but just hit the rumble strip a couple of times. And we ended up getting pulled over. But that same person drove for like 2.5 hours while we smoked 3 blunts. We started one just in the driveway and smoked it a little while before we started going, and then we smoked another like, I don't know, a third of the way there, and then we smoked another on our drive back. And the whole time, dude drove fucking perfectly. Was never swerving, was not speeding as far as I could tell. There were a couple times when I was real stoned and I looked over there to see if he was. Nope. Speedometer said he wasn't. So, like, in my personal experience, if I'm going to take, would I rather my friend that I'm talking about, would I rather he pilot a commercial vehicle stoned or drunk? I'm going to say stoned every day of the week because I think he could do it and get the goods there safely with minimum breakage, you know? Drunk, I wouldn't trust that motherfucker to. I would never drive with him drunk again. I would never drive with anyone drunk again. That was the only time I've ever done it, to my knowledge. I guess any other time, if I've ever done it another time, somebody was hiding it well enough I didn't notice. It was the only time I've ever done it in my life, and I would never do it again because it was terrifying. Hell, I had to drive, and I was still a little bit tipsy, but I was able to convince the cop. I mean, he did a field sobriety test to make sure I wasn't lying, which I guess fucking don't trust them bitches, because I definitely was. But I passed the field sobriety test, I passed the awareness test and everything, and he was like, okay, well, if you're willing to drive this vehicle, then you can come and up here to Chillicothe and you can meet us at the police station. And he's just going to be booked and released, but we're going to have to book and release him and let his parole officer know and all the shit. So I was like, okay. But I was able to drive, and I didn't have any problems driving, but I also didn't have a whole lot of choice. The other alternative was all 3 of us got arrested that night, you know? So I sobered up quick, drove like a fucking champ there and back, and I've never done it again, or never before, never since. There might have been one other time I drove drunk before that, but that was just like stupidity, just teenage stupidity. And I come from a family, by the way, where I would have been able to just call up my mom and be like, hey, Mom, I'm fucking dumb. I didn't think about it, but we're out here. We're at Alex's house, and I'm so drunk. I can't drive home. I can't do it. Could you possibly come get me? And even if she was super tired and had to work in 4 hours, she would have been like, fuck, yeah, I can. Thank you for calling me. And she would get up out of bed and come get me. So I had no excuse at all for that stupid shit. But when I lived in Carrollton and did it, when I lived up there, I didn't have any excuse there either, you know? I didn't have any excuse there either, but I think it was like more understandable, at least in my eyes, because I don't know why I look at it as more understandable, honestly. Maybe because I wasn't as crossfaded as they were, because I'd taken it a little easier on the booze for sure, because I'd had a bad experience drinking a few days before that. Dude, I gotta tell you guys, I don't tell many stories about it for whatever reason. People don't request them much, but late 2019 was a wild fucking time in my life. I wish I still had some people that were in my life that hung out and chat that could back this shit up. Well, Joseph was in here a while back. I don't know if Joseph still watches, but maybe Joseph will pop into one of these days, and I'll be able to have him back up my stories. When I lived in Los Angeles, my mama gave me a gun and some Skittles. What? Really? Anyway, but yeah, weed is basically one of those things that we spend a shit ton of money enforcing in this country. We enforce a whole bunch, and really the war on drugs in general. It's one of these things that we spend so fucking much tax money on enforcement, when in reality we could spend a quarter of that tax money collectively on rehabilitation centers, effective drug treatment centers, and things like that, intervention centers, all these different community support organizations, and we could spend it on creating a regulation environment, like a true regulation environment for the legalization of all these different illicit substances and shit. And we could spend a quarter of that tax money and get way more benefit out of it. You would actually get less people on drugs. And the people who were on drugs, you would get way less of them dying to it, and way less of them losing their lives to it in general, whether they actually die or go on living some kind of like weird meth ghost, right? You would end up losing way less people in your citizenry to these toxic substances if we just enacted some basic fucking measures to end the war on drugs and to replace that tax funding, or to replace the uses of that tax funding with effective drug treatment. People dying from weed? I wasn't talking about anybody dying from weed. I don't know if you're responding to me or somebody in the chat, but no, I'm talking about drugs in general. I think that like the entire war on drugs is bullshit, because the war on drugs is not just weed. I don't make some. A lot of stoners make a distinction between weed and heroin and things like that, and I do too. They're not the same substance, and I think it's truly unfair that weed and heroin are judged on the same level. But all of the arguments that apply for weed when it comes, not all the arguments, but a lot of the arguments that apply to weed when it comes to the benefits of regulation, a lot of them apply to other drugs as well. And so I take the natural logical step of applying it evenly, right? So if it's true of weed that regulation and legalization leads to a more regulated supply and uh, to greater awareness about the ill effects, right? To a safer supply, to greater education about the regulated effect, or about the effects and everything like that, and leads to um, and leads to tax revenue that would normally just be a part of the profits that the fucking cartel gets, right? If that's true of weed, why can't it be true of heroin too? Yeah, is heroin a riskier drug? It sure is. But that, in my opinion, makes it a better candidate for legalization and regulation, not a worse one. I think that opiates and opioids are perhaps one of the best targets for regulation and decriminalization and legalization, because people are getting addicted to these drugs at an increasingly high rate, and people who are addicted to them need to be able to get a supply that is not fucking tainted. They need to be able to get a supply that will have the intended effects with the listed dose. They need to have accurate dosing. And most importantly, they need to be told about completely taxpayer-funded rehabs in their area that will help them recover from their addiction should they choose to want to go that path. All of these things need to be presented to people. All of these things need to be options. People need to know. But it's gonna be a massive policy shift in America, right? It's gonna be a massive policy shift in America, and I think that's why a lot of people focus so heavily on weed, is because ultimately a lot of people have been propagandized to believe that that heroin and meth and things like this are horrible, evil drugs that do nothing but kill people and do nothing but ruin lives. And the truth of it is that yes, a lot of these things in their current state, abused as they are, do ruin lives. A lot of them ruin lives because dosing is not monitored in any way. A lot of them ruin lives because the illicit nature of them makes it kind of like thrilling to do them, even if they're not really that thrilling in effect, or even if one would not normally do as much of them as they are, right? The way we treat drugs in this country leads to more drug addiction, not less. I believe all drugs should be legal, and Narcan should be illegal, and body soap and body bags should be sold like newspaper dispensaries. See, Luridius, I don't like that at all. Why? What's your problem with drug users? What's your opinion of drug users, and would your opinion change at all if you knew I used to have a problem with tramadol? An opioid? An opioid narcotic? Now, part of the way I'm able to stay away from it is through cannabis, which is another great argument for its legalization. But I don't think that means that we should keep these other drugs strictly illegal. Nor do I think necessarily that we should even like heavily discourage people from doing them, and at least not outright and directly. I think that people need to be explained these drugs in a very fucking mundane way. That would keep people from doing drugs more than anything else. You know why people do drugs? Like, let's just get down into it. There are like 3 reasons why people do drugs. 1, it's cool, man. As in, it's just fun. It's kind of like a neat recreational thing, and there's all sorts of cultural narratives that go into that, right? We're about to get into it, but the other 2 reasons I think are perhaps even more dominant, but they're worthy of bringing up as a result of that, right? So productivity is a big one. So a lot of people do meth because, like, a lot of people in the South and Midwest, I'm not saying a lot of people, but a lot of people who do meth in the Midwest and the South do so in order to stay awake for long hours at a job. Like, most of them don't even like their job that much, but that's what they have to do to make money for their family. And their meth habit is a pretty fucking small expense to pay for being able to make, 80 grand in the oil fields, or 90 grand run an OTR with a truck or something like that, So productivity is a big one. And then pain relief. Most people who are doing some kind of hardcore opiate or opioid, or even smaller ones like tramadol, like what I was doing, I can tell you exactly why I had a problem with tramadol. It's because I deal with chronic pain. And because, it's almost like the Dr. House situation. Not that I see myself as an analog to him, but I'm just saying that the reason why pain pills are appealing to people is because pain is one of those things that is alterative. I don't know if that's the right word that I'm looking for, but pain pills are one of those things, or I'm sorry, pain is one of those things that is an adulterant of personality. Basically, it colors the way you interact with people. It colors the way you see yourself and see the world. It can interfere with your creativity, and interferes with thought processes and things like that. Pain is a form of stress, and stress kills, right? So those 3 reasons are why people do drugs. And there's really only one of them that we can hardcore get in the way of with the way we present information. But I do think that we should do our best to do that, right? Because there are people who get into some of these drugs not because of the reasons I've listed as being more understandable, I guess, or being more a result of society, like, and the pressures of capitalist society, right? But as a result of just it being a fun, culturally cool thing to do or whatever. There are people who get into even meth and fucking opiates and opioids for reasons like that. And if we're going to get in the way of that, I think the only way to do that is by explaining drugs in a very mundane way. All of this was basically to say that I think a big part of getting people to get off of drugs, getting people to be less reliant on harder drugs especially, but also just party drugs, I think a big part of that is changing the way we do drug education in this country, because the way we do drug education makes drugs seem like something other than what they are. What drugs are all of the various chemicals that human beings use to alter our state of mind or our physical being. That's what a drug is. Pretty mundane, right? Pretty all-encompassing, pretty vague, honestly. Covers a lot of shit. And some people even have a broader definition. Some people would categorize internet abuse as a drug and would, like, internet abuse is a fucking definable term, right? So I think it really has to do with changing the language around drug use and changing the way we educate people about drug use, because right now, the way we talk about drugs makes them seem super fucking cool and hip and shit, because you've got institutions like DARE and these other anti-drug institutions that basically make it seem like all the cool kids do drugs, all the outcasts and all the people with the cool hair and the bad attitude, all the people you want to be like do drugs, and you just gotta say no, even though they're all the coolest people around. Like, there's all this subtle messaging that kids honestly take the exact opposite way from how they're supposed to take it. I can't tell you how many fucking people I grew up going to DARE with that now have some kind of addiction they're dealing with, because these programs weren't effective at all. They made drugs seem appealing by making them seem like adult and scary and forbidden, when really drugs should just be explained in a mundane way. Drugs should be explained largely the way I've been explaining them. Drugs are all of the various different chemicals and arguably some of the experiences that we human beings indulge in to change our state of mind or to alter our physical state of being. And using drugs inherently is not bad. Abusing a drug tends to be, and there are certain drugs with higher risk factors than others. Abusing these drugs carries extra risk. Even using these drugs might carry extra risk. And here are those risks. Here's why people take them. Here are the risks, That, I think, would be way more effective drug education than drugs are horrible, kids. They're gonna ruin your whole life, I do not know, Luridius. Maybe that's happening. Hydro stronger than tramadol? No, I know. Well, that's what I was saying, is that what I took was a pretty low-level fucking opioid. It's an opioid narcotic, but it's not as bad as hydrocodone or oxycodone or fucking fentanyl, heroin, morphine. It's not nearly as powerful as any of those. Sorry, guys. I have to get me another dab ready. But I don't have a tool, so the way I have to do it is pretty jank. You know what I'm saying? If you know what I'm saying. Did someone say fentanyl? Yes, Matt Blank, we did. I don't know, Matt Blank. You sound like a narc right now. Just saying. You say you're not, but you sound an awful lot like a narc right now, friend. How do you feel about SNAP benefits being cut? Just another way for the Republicans to fuck over the working class that'll be normalized by the next Democratic administration. I can guarantee you that. The Republicans have been wanting to cut SNAP benefits for a long time, and honestly, I think a lot of austerity-minded Democrats have been kind of wanting to do the same thing, but they can't do it or they lose voters. So they're waiting for the Republican Party to do it so that they can normalize those changes later and somehow find the mental gymnastics to say that what they were decrying 2 or 3 years ago is actually really good policy that they need to continue on with. But I don't agree with it. I think that in fact, I support a fucking universal food stipend and price controls on basic needs when it comes to groceries. I don't think that fresh produce. I think that fresh produce should be price controlled, a price that's like tied to a couple of different economic factors to ensure fairness, to ensure that there's enough money to pay agricultural workers and to keep the commerce going and to keep R&D going and all that, but making sure that people can't charge so fucking much that people can't afford to buy groceries. And making sure that the reason for that overpricing and overgouging and shit is not to pad the wallets of rich agricultural billionaires. So I'm definitely against SNAP benefits being cut. Working class do not qualify for SNAP. I think you misunderstand my use of the working class. When you think working class, you might think people who make, 40 grand a year or more, which might qualify for SNAP in some areas, by the way. But when I say working class, I mean those who work. That's all I mean. Those who work do qualify for SNAP benefits in a lot of cases. Proof? Look at how many of look at how much of Walmart's workforce is subsidized through the food stamp program. It's something that I can't remember what newspaper did a big expose about it a few years ago, but it came out, like I said, some giant newspaper did a big expose about it, that Walmart has something like 60 to 70% of its staff that rely on food stamps to buy food. much of which they end up spending on Walmart, and some of which they get their employee discount on. So it's literally like company stores fucking being subsidized by taxpayer funding because people don't want to pay their employees enough to live. $40 million Americans are on SNAP. That just proves my point. Like, there are not 40 million unemployed Americans, are there? Oh yeah, it's terrible. No, what's terrible? Wait, what's terrible? Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, Walmart, yeah, no. That's the fucking thing, right? So, like, when you say working class, you might mean something different, but when I say working class, I'm using the IWW's definition. And the IWW's definition is that there are two classes, ultimately, that are fighting it out, and that will eventually fight it out to the death. And one of them will take over completely, and the other will go away. And under that definition, those two classes are the proletariat, or the working class, and the bourgeoisie, or the ownership class in IWW terminology. The ownership class owns factories, owns stocks. They make most of their income not from doing something physically. It's not like the salary that they earn as a CEO is what they actually live on. That's not the bulk of their wealth. The bulk of their wealth is in ownership stakes. Ownership stakes of corporations, perhaps the corporation they're CEO of, in fact, usually a corporation that they're CEO of, as well as a number of different stocks and a number of different hedge funds and things like that. That is the ownership class, people who own things. Whether or not they have some other kind of job is irrelevant. If they own things, they are part of the ownership class. And I mean own things as in other than your home and maybe like another house that you go to sometimes, you know? Like, Wobblies are okay with you owning like 2 houses, maybe 2.5 max. But after that, it starts to become pretty ridiculous. And if at any point you start renting them out to somebody, you just became part of the ownership class, whether you've got billions of dollars or not, because you have now aligned yourself and your interests with the interests of the ownership class, because you have entered into the fucking follied game of capitalism. The fouled and follied game of capitalism. But yeah, that's the definition I'm using. That's the definition I'm going with. Because, because I'm wobbly, I guess. I haven't paid my red card dues in a while, though. 40 mil on benefits, then there's another 80 mil that is the working class. On what basis are you differentiating them? On what basis are you differentiating them, my friend? See, because the definition I'm pulling from is one that is time-honored in leftist literature. Maybe that's something you don't care about, right? I understand that, but I do care about it. A lot of my audience cares about it, and if anybody watches this stream afterwards, they'll consider it pretty remiss if I don't at least ask you where you're getting this from, you know? They don't qualify for SNAP, but once again, I have to ask, what is that distinction based on? Like, how does that mean that they're working class and the people who are on SNAP are not? What are they if not working class? Would you call them SNAP class? Like, what is the... See, the distinction that I draw is a very clear one. People who work for their living versus people who own things for a living, right? Very clear distinction. Very clear. Makes no determination on the basis of eligibility for government benefits, which, by the way, is a pretty fucking bad standard to hold if you're trying to determine class relations as a concept, because one's ability to qualify for one of those things can change with one little pink slip. You know, that's all it takes for someone to go from not qualifying for SNAP to qualifying for SNAP in some cases. Yeah, that's not a good distinction. I'm sorry. The working class includes fucking whole bunch of people who have to receive some form of welfare, whether it's in the form of SNAP benefits or actual monthly payments or something like that. All fucking kinds of the working class are reliant on this sort of economic input from the state in order to continue living. Pretty common thing. And either way, I feel like it's like we're just quabbling over definitions ultimately. My point was that cutting SNAP benefits does not empower like the average American. It disempowers the average American even further. It makes the average American less able to get help if they need it. It makes the average American less able to use whatever help they might be getting to feed their families. It makes the average American standard of living lesser. It decreases the amount of money that's being redistributed to people so that they can continue to buy groceries and things like that, which helps to fund the economy, which helps to pay for everybody else's paychecks. It's a net depressant on the economy, which means it hurts the working class, because the working class is always disproportionately hurt by changes to the economy. And that, by the way, remains true whether we're using your definition of people who are employed but don't make enough, employed and don't make enough to own things, but also don't make little enough to qualify for SNAP and things like that. Even if we use that definition, those people are going to be hurt by this, because those people are the kinds of people that are involved in middle management of agricultural firms and retail firms and things like that. They're middle managers, they're HR people, they're office workers and software developers, and everybody is hurt when you hurt the fucking poorest people in your country. You know why? Because the poorest people in your country are the people who have to spend their income in the economy. They have to. And they're the people who can't afford accountants either, so they're the people who end up paying the bulk of the fucking taxes. Unless they're actually filing for fucking, filing their taxes and getting returns, which not all of them do. Do you know how many people in this country just don't file their taxes every year because they just assume they're not going to get shit back? Yeah, that's just a bullshit mischaracterization. I'm sorry, Lucidius. I don't agree at all. I think that that's just a bullshit mischaracterization meant to divide the working class further. There is no needless division between the working class and what you're calling the welfare class. I reject this distinction, especially because it can be broken by one little pink slip. One little pink slip can turn somebody who has a full-time job at a factory with really good benefits that enables them enough money to buy groceries and pay rent and all this other shit without getting a dime of government assistance, to someone who has to start applying for food stamps and shit to feed their family, which was going just fine and that was living the American dream right up until the company they worked for closed and moved the fuck out of Dodge, or Detroit, if you want to look at an actual historical example. I grew up, let's just talk about a little town I grew up in. I grew up in a town called Park Hills, Missouri. It's where I spent most of my time between the age of 14 and 22. And while living in Park Hills, Missouri, I was exposed to something for the first time in my life, because I grew up in the country out in Mississippi. I didn't have any fucking access to the guts and bones of industrialization and its exit out of the cities and small towns of America. But living in Park Hills, I got a fucking up close and front row seat. I got an up close view and a front row seat to what it looks like when industry comes to an area, rapes it for everything it's worth, and then leaves, with leaving nothing behind but cancer and lead poisoning in its wake. Let me tell you a little story about the lead belt. So the lead belt is a region in Missouri, presumably a couple of other states, but Missouri is the part that I know about, that comprises a bunch of counties where lead was mined heavily for about 100 years, give or take, smelted, and then delivered for purchase all over the United States. And in these places where the mines were, where the smelting operations were, you can find the guts of this industry all over. You can see the remains of it in the town names: River Mines. Um, uh, let's see, River Mines, Ironton, Leadwood, Leadington. You can hear it in the town names every so often. And once industry left this area, not, I don't live there anymore, but once industry left this area we're talking about, it took with it a bunch of people's jobs. A bunch of people showed up at work one day, having worked for 15 years, maybe 20 years in some cases, probably. Some of them were probably a year away from retirement. They woke up one day, took a streetcar or took a taxi or drove over to the factory, and as they got close to the front entrance, they noticed that everybody was in a big pool of people outside. There was a big giant crowd of people, and there was a little line forming. And after all was said and done, they found out there was no job anymore, that their retirement was gone, or that the 15 years that they had spent working there was now for nothing, that they had to restart with a different company. There was no severance package because there's no money in the budget for that. And there's no guarantee of that in the non-contract that you don't have, because these weren't unionized mines or factories. At least most of them weren't. So these workers received effectively nothing except their last paychecks, and then went on to become the critically, tragically underdeveloped, underfunded, ratty, bedraggled populace that lives there now. And I'm not even talking shit about the people who live there. They can't help it. It's a miracle that I turned out as okay as I am, given how much lead was probably in the water that I was drinking out of my tap. You'd think that they would take... You know what lead tailings are? Let me tell you a little bit about what corporate America does with its waste when you let them do whatever they want. And let this be a lesson to you in the dangers of laissez-faire capitalism. In the olden golden days, before there were environmental regulations that prevented companies from doing things like this, they would just dump the fucking lead tailings, which are... I guess I'll explain that real quick. Whenever you mine lead, like any other metal, not every part of the stone that you pull out can actually be melted down and turned into lead. A lot of it's impurities. You clean off these impurities, and what's left are called tailings. Essentially, little pieces of rock that might have some lead in them, that usually have a little bit of lead in them at least, but that it's too small. It's more impurity than it is lead, and so it has to go away until they get to the good stuff. And in the olden golden days, they didn't ship this far away and dump it in some kind of landfill far away from any aquifers. They didn't use this in roadway construction, completely sealed off from the environment in every way possible and protected from extrusion or whatever. No, they didn't do anything intelligent with it. You know what they did with it? Stuck it out back, effectively. They would ship it to some other part of town if they had to, somewhere where they'd bought up some cheap land. One of these lead tailing dumps was literally on a fucking creek. I'm not even kidding. Look up the Flat River. Look up Park Hills, Missouri, and look at it on Google Maps, and you will see a big yellow mountain of sand. What looks like sand, at least from the aerial photographs. It's actually big chunks of rock that were put there in order to cover up the literal decades of lead tailings that were dumped there, right next to the Flat River. Right next to Flat River. This happened all over the country, lead iron manufacturing. Guess what? It all got sold overseas. Yeah. So that means the story doesn't mean anything now? So, like, Your original point was trying to draw some distinction between the working class broadly and the people who are you call the welfare class. And I have been making the point that there are ways to join the welfare class that have nothing to do with your position in life, nothing to do with the choices you make or anything else. You seem to be wanting to skirt around that point because it's not convenient to your narrative, but I want you to confront this. Confront the reality of what these decisions meant for Americans. Confront the fucking realities of what the failures of the Republicans and Democrats to shore it up in any way means for people like me and you. Think about what it means for a fucking second that you can go like overnight from being a person with a good job and good health care and everything else to a person with no job and no health care and no fucking options except staying in the area that you're quickly finding out has been poisoned by the thing you did as a job for the last 30 fucking years. I'm saying account for that rot. I'm asking you to account for that fucking rot. Is it not enough that you have to slave away sometimes doing backbreaking work, but also have to fight to do so? You would think, Matt. You really would. And my point is not, I wasn't even talking about the environmental regulations. My whole point was that corporate America is a monster. My whole point is that corporate America is an inhuman fucking monster. It might be composed of humans, but the way it acts is so desperately and disgustingly inhuman that I refuse to see it as part of our species. It is an inhuman monster that can turn a person who just wants to make a living and just wants to do something and provide for their family into someone desperate and clawing for survival just to get by. Corporate America is a monster that makes people entirely reliant on their way of doing things, fucks up their communities, and then leaves when the money dries up. And I'm arguing that the marketplace is not the best fucking way to determine how basic needs are allocated to people. And we don't need to celebrate. In fact, we need to fucking be angry when the few social safety nets that we do have in this country are impinged upon, like when SNAP benefits are cut. I think we need to be angry about that. I think we need to protest that shit, because the fact of it is, something has to be there to shore up the failures of corporate America to account for human need, because corporate America is not concerned with corporate need. It's anti-profit motive. There's no money in fixing people's problems, not long term. There's no money in convincing everyone to grow their own food to the extent that they can, and convincing people to join food co-ops and to be part of them and participatory in them. There's no money to be made in convincing people to have community gardens. Every bit of advocacy that's been done on that has been done on the back. If it's been done with any taxpayer funding at all, it's been filtered through like the many lenses of NPR or some shit like that. You know, there's no actual profit motive in convincing people to live better. There's no. The profit motive is in getting people addicted to as much consumerist fucking bullshit as possible, and then making them as reliant on that as possible, and just ratcheting it up as much as you can. The profit motive is not in providing people good jobs that pay them well, that provide really good benefits, that make them able to escalate in society and own a little bit of something themselves. No, that's not where the profit motive is. You have to really encourage that for that to happen in the marketplace. The profit motive is in paying people as little as you can get away with for the job they're expected to do, rewarding utmost loyalty, and punishing any deviancy. That's the profit motive. The profit motive corrupts everything it touches, and the profit motive is what distinguishes you and I from people who actually own shit. Because you and I don't work for the profit motive. We might feel like we do sometimes, But that's not why. We work because we must. We work because if we don't, our families starve. We starve. Life ceases to exist for us personally if we cease to work. It has nothing to do with the profit motive. And that is what distinguishes the working class from the ownership class. And those are the only two classes there are, my friend. Thousands of towns have been destroyed by corporations and have come back and made something of themselves. I don't agree at all. I don't agree at all. Name one. There are plenty of towns that corporate America destroyed, where people have continued living in them and they've grown because people have continued to fucking have babies, because people continue to fucking have babies anywhere people live. I agree that there are plenty of places that have continued to exist and maybe have grown a little bit, but I would not agree that a lot of them have necessarily come back. A few of them, sure. Yeah, there's some recovery stories out there, and I'm always glad to hear them. And I think that whatever they did there needs to be mirrored and applied again. And I'm happy when that happens, but it's not the vast majority. It's not the vast majority. If you look at most towns that corporate America has had a hand in building, most of them now are decrepit. And that's just because most fucking small towns in America have corporate America at some point in their history, and most of that's gone now. So unless you have something else going for you, it's kind of hard to keep a town going now, for example. Or, I'm sorry, for example, if you look at a lot of little small towns in New Mexico, there's a real clear identifiable pattern between which towns get abandoned by capitalism and which towns got abandoned by the first iteration of capitalism and then swept up in the next. If you're a little mountain town where you can build a ski resort, yeah, your town might have started off as a mining town or something like that, or as a trapping town or something like that, but now it's a tourism town. Taos, New Mexico is that way. Cimarron is kind of that way. Eagle Nest, I think it's called. I can't really remember the name of it, but there's this little town in the mountains up there that's that way. Riadoso, I'm pretty sure, is that way. It used to be a little mining town / native kind of village area, and now it's a tourist town because it's a really beautiful place to visit. This pattern holds up for a lot of towns, and then you look at a lot of other places that used to be mines in New Mexico, and a lot of them are fucking dried up old husks of towns that used to have 3,000 or 4,000 people in them that now have like 450. They're just dried up old husks now because there's nothing else to do there. You can't fucking farm there. You're lucky if you drill a well if you find any water. And if you do, it's not like you're going to be allowed to use it for that, so. But see, my thing is, these are all of them problems we can answer with a strong social safety net. And people that aren't struggling just to survive come up with really unique ways to fill their time. If someone goes from just struggling to survive to being able to just work one job and not have to worry so much about their side hustles or something like that, then you start to see what that person really wants to do. They start to have the time to like do creative things, and they might have to just fucking have the resources as well. Even if they continue doing their previous, like overemployment thing, now they might have the resources to save up to be able to really do something that they're super passionate about. I think that if you raise everybody up with strong social safety nets, I think you end up with a country that's got way more creativity, way more happiness, way more productivity in terms of what people are creating. It's going to be different across the country. Well, of course. What works for one place doesn't necessarily work for another, but I do think that all cases need to be examined for common patterns. Would you agree there? When it comes to town recovery in America, it seems like we both agree that it's a goal that we can achieve, yes? And if so, would you agree that we need to examine every case and kind of do some comparisons and see what works, what doesn't? Although I gotta tell you, we're getting to a point where we're pretty much gonna have to start relying on some kind of social safety net solution, because, like, the idea the idea that in this current climate of jobs being increasingly replaced by AI and businesses moving out of towns at an accelerating rate and things like that, in this increasingly hostile climate to working class people here in America, working people in general, if you want to generalize it, maybe. Come on. Come on. Come on. Sorry, had to let the cat in. Anyway. Oh. What happens to gay people in Gaza? Probably what happens to Palestinians in Gaza, I would imagine. They probably die to IDF bullets and missiles pretty often. The only thing that creates productivity is incentive, and free socialist programs like rent. That's just not even true. The only thing that creates productivity is incentive. Incentive. That's just not true. The only thing that creates productivity is incentive. So what was the incentive for a cave person? What was the incentive for a cave person to draw cave paintings that depicted old hunts and things like that? What was their incentive? What did they stand to benefit from that? See, I'm gonna do a little thing here, right, where I use your terminology against you a little bit, right? Because you are saying incentive from a marketplace standpoint. I would argue that incentive, because I agree with your statement if we're saying that, or I agree with the first half of your statement if we're going to agree that incentive can be emotional, that incentive can be desire, that incentive can be personal pleasure, because I think that that generates quite a bit of productivity as well. Otherwise, you're going to have to admit that people in the upper class, people that own things, don't have any incentive, aren't producing anything, aren't working, aren't doing anything. Because what's their incentive? What is a rich person's incentive to keep getting richer? Like, once you get to the level of Jeff Bezos, what's the incentive there? You would say, well, to get more money, obviously, because you need it to live. Yeah, but Jeff Bezos has enough money. He could choose to donate every dollar he makes for the rest of his life to charity, and it wouldn't make a dent in his fortune. He would continue to be one of the richest people alive for the rest of his life. He could actually donate, like $10 million every year for the rest of his life. He could donate $100 million every year for the rest of his life and not run out, not ever run under $1 billion. We're talking about people who have way, 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 way more money than you need to live. What's their incentive? The caveman drew paintings because he could. So why wouldn't someone... Okay, yeah, actually, you know what, Lucidius, you're right. You're right. You just said something that I want to capitalize on, though, okay, right? So I agree with you. The caveman drew paintings because he could. Why could he? Because the caveman didn't have the pressures on him that some people have on them today. The caveman had the will to create that painting. He had the ability because he was, a natural... I say he. They were a natural, like a person versed in using natural things. They knew what correct combination of things in the wild could make this ink or that ink. And they would formulate those inks and paint them on the wall because they could. Because they could. Because they had a place to live, right? The cave that they were living in, where they painted those paintings. They had fire. Their needs were taken care of. That's where you find ancient paintings and pottery and things like that. Places where people had enough. And in places where people had enough, that's where you find that kind of thing. And you see a dearth of those sorts of things at times of tragedy and famine and things like that. The more pressure is on people, the less creative they can be, and the less productive they can be outside of the whatever job they have. Can you paint on your wall right now? Could you find a rock and paint on it right now, even if you were starving? Are you making my argument for me? I'm really confused at this point. Do you agree with me or disagree with me? Because I'm confused. Like, yes, I could paint on my wall right now. I mean, I don't know if I have any paint markers on me or anything like that, but yeah, I mean, I could, if I wanted to. I mean, hell, the drywall isn't even fucking done in here, and none of it's painted and shit, so whatever I draw on there is going to be sanded. Like, I can sand it off later or fucking just cover it up with primer and paint over it or whatever. So hell yeah, I could paint on these walls if I wanted to. In fact, I've thought about it sometimes. But could I do so if I was starving? No. And that just goes to bolster my argument further. No, I don't think I could if I was starving. I think I could in theory if I was starving, but I don't think I would have any desire to. Because the like I said, well, I didn't say this exactly, but it goes into what I was saying. Correct myself. If I were to be starving, right, I would have way more have way more important things on my mind than drawing. The only way I would end up drawing on that wall is if I conceived of some plan by which I would rescue myself from starvation by painting on the wall. Otherwise, the thought would never cross my mind. I'd be too focused on survival. The same is true of today's modern day working class proletarian. They are confined in a situation where they are being milked to the maximum. Their rent is as high as they can get it. Their wages have been stagnant for 50 years. Their benefits are worse somehow than they were 5 years ago. In other words, the American working class is being bilked to the maximum. And we have no room in our lives left, most of us, for any kind of creativity. Now, I'm lucky enough to be in a household where we've got enough incomes combined, and we're in a lucky enough situation with like owning the land outright, not having a mortgage or anything, to where we're able to make it work. And I'm able to be a stay-at-home parent and do this as my job. And I'm incredibly lucky for that and incredibly privileged for that. But most people in my position don't have that ability. Most people in my position end up living on way fucking tighter margins than we live on. And we don't live on fucking wide open margins either. We're able to buy more groceries than, like, if it was just me and my partner by ourselves raising our baby in an apartment and I had to stay home to take care of him. I mean, we would be on such a shoestring budget. We would be eating so fucking little in order to feed him. But thanks to our all combined incomes in the household, as we've got it arranged, you know, things are not that hard. We're able to buy actual groceries and make decent meals at home and be okay, you know, keep everybody in a relative caloric surplus most of the time. Would you accept a ticket to Gaza after the war? I would pay for your housing as well. Go there and declare yourself gay. You would not survive for more than a day. Roy, I actually had someone make this offer a while back. They made a slightly different offer, but they ended up liking my answer and sticking around. I just haven't seen them in a while. Sucks that they would make that offer, but then not follow up on it, but whatever. Yeah, I would do it. I would do it. Not only would I declare myself queer, I would literally throw. I in fact offered to do it during the war. I told that dude. He said, "Would you do a queer protest in Gaza? I would pay for your travel and housing and all that shit." And I was like, "Yeah, hell yeah, let me do." And I thought about it a little more, and I was like, "Well, okay, right? Because if I just do like some kind of queer pride protest in Palestine, I don't necessarily think I'm going to get killed for that. Honestly, I genuinely don't. But I do think that it would be incredibly in like really poor taste if that was all I did. If that was all I did. Now, what I do think would go over really well would be if I did like a soup kitchen. Excuse me. If I took a bunch of food aid in and got it inspected at the border or whatever, this is assuming they would even let me in, right, to the occupied zone or whatever they're calling it now. Um, Assuming that could happen, right? I think that if I did like a soup kitchen that was like hashtag queers for Palestine or something like that, that was like representative of solidarity between queer people and Palestinian liberation, I think that would go over incredibly well. And I would be more than happy to do that if someone would fund that for me. Yeah, I would do it 100%. Let's do it. If I die, it'll be for a good cause. I don't think I'm going to die, though. Honestly, I think if I die, it'll be from an Israeli bullet or missile, not from Hamas. Especially not if you're willing to provide security, honestly. I think all it would take to scare most of them off of that would be like 2 or 3 dudes in a military looking truck. I'm aware of Israeli propaganda about Gaza, Roy. I'm aware of Israeli propaganda about Gaza. I don't need to be reminded about what Israeli politicians have to say about queer people and their relationship to the Palestinian people. One of the only Palestinian Americans involved in any fucking level of our government is strongly pro-queer. That indicates to me that there is at least an undercurrent of acceptance of gay people in fucking Palestine. I don't know if they'd let you in considering what they did to Greta Thunberg. Well, that's what I'm saying, Margot, is that if we would even get let in, right? I don't think we would. So I think that everybody making this offer is just silly. Because, like, number one, if I do it after the war, if I do it after the war and Hamas is gone, I thought that was the fundamentalist fucking element in Palestinian culture that you had to erase to get rid of the problem. What are you literally saying? Roy, let's just establish something. Let's make something perfectly clear. Are you literally saying that every single Palestinian on the planet is anti-gay? Are you literally saying that? Specify what you're talking about, because I have this issue with people who say one thing when they're trying to justify one narrative and another thing when they're trying to justify another, right? I like to make sure that people's fucking beliefs make sense in reference to one another. 90% of them are. So you're seriously telling me that the one Palestinian American in all of American governance just happens to be a Palestinian that flies through the keyhole of queer acceptance? So you're saying there's a 10% chance that a Palestinian is pro-queer, and you're saying that that one out of every 10 Palestinians is who ended up that's Rashida Tlaib. She's the 1 out of 10 Muslims that is pro-queer. That seems retarded to me. How the fuck did she get elected by a constituency that had a high percentage of Palestinian Americans if that's how Palestinians feel about gay people? Are you on HRT? No. I wish I was, but I'm not. Can't afford it. Probably could if I had insurance, but I don't. I don't need to research it, Roy. I've already done the fucking research. I think you're the one who needs to research it further. I think you're the one who needs to research it further, and I think you need to go farther than just fucking pro-Israeli sources. Go look at some fucking sources that claim to be unbiased. Go look at some sources that are biased on the left. Go look at some sources that are biased on the right. Start comparing the fucking narratives and see if you can find some truth in it. Because the truth of it is, most Palestinians right now living in Gaza care way more about getting food for their children than they do about any fucking religious fundamentalist bullshit. And the only people who are enforcing that kind of thing are a bunch of fundamentalist morons who have been around ever since Israeli terrorist groups started fucking around with the Muslim population, which has a tendency, by the way, to generate fundamentalist groups that are willing to use violence against their enemies. This is what created the violent tendency, the violent tendencies of the Muslim Brotherhood. It was American intrusion on the Egyptian government that originally empowered the Muslim Brotherhood by giving them radicalized people, by giving them people that hated America because of all the fucking shit that they were, that they really just couldn't help but notice were being caused by this fucking giant imperialist country. And it happened in Egypt, it happened in fucking Afghanistan, it happened in Iraq, it happened in all over the Middle East. These fundamentalist groups came into power by literally by weaponizing people's hatred of America against them in order to oppress them. And the reason they were able to do that is because America just can't stop fucking with the Middle East. Because we absolutely insist on having access to that part of the world for all of its mineral wealth and all of its oil wealth. That's why we prop up Israel. That's why we fuck with the Middle East anytime we want. That's why anytime the trade deals get particularly sour, we start sending in the fighter planes and the bombs, and we start letting Israel do the same. That's why Israel feels comfortable with just bombing Iran out of fucking nowhere. That's why the Shah's son feels comfortable talking about how he would be a transitional leader in a potential new government in Iran. Hint, hint. Can you say regime change? Yeah, just because queer pride parades aren't happening in Palestine doesn't mean that no fucking queer representation exists in Palestine. So if Israel just took full control over their country and eliminated the threat and offered full services to everyone, you would be okay with it? Eliminated the threat. Well, that's the fucking problem, right? Is because I genuinely believe that a lot of people in the Israeli government feel about like Roy do. And as long as there are a bunch of fucking people in the Israeli government who feel like Roy do, then eliminating the threat in their mind is going to justifiably mean eliminating 90% of Palestinians. And frankly, even if 90% of Palestinians do believe in queer people getting fucking killed, I still don't think that justifies genociding them. Ow. It's one of these fucking things. I just hate the fucking talking point. I end up spending, it's a demerit to my argument in one way, because I end up spending so much fucking time on the ethics of and all this shit, right? But the truth of it is that this is essentially, in my opinion, a blood libel, no different than that which was accused of the Jews back in the days of the Holocaust, right? And during the days of the rise of anti-Semitism in Western Europe. It was bullshit then, and it's bullshit now. It was bullshit then, and it's bullshit now. It was bullshit when dumbass white Western Europeans were saying it about Jewish people back in the 1910s, saying that Jewish people were poisoning wells, saying that Jewish people were going to fucking eat Christian babies or whatever the fuck. It was stupid and ridiculous back then, and it's stupid and ridiculous now for people to say, well, how can you support Palestine when 90% of Palestinians would just see that gay people are killed permanently? It's fucking ridiculous, just on the face of it. Just on the face of it. I debate some of the, or I don't debate, but I argue with some of the points of detail because I think it matters to point out why this shit is wrong, but ultimately it's just wrong on the fucking face of it. It's just a fucking bullshit narrative meant to justify genocide. it's saying, rather than saying, yeah, there's a genocide and yeah, it's wrong, and Israel should be communicating and working with the international community to get in some kind of unbiased aid and provide like an intermediary that disarms and enforces some kind of peace between these two groups, right? They don't want to admit that. They don't want to criticize the state of Israel. They want to justify the genocide. So rather than arguing about the factuality of the genocide, they just try to attack the very idea of a queer person supporting Palestine at all. They try to attack the very idea of supporting Palestine at all because, oh, well, it's okay to genocide them because they're just a bunch of queer hating motherfuckers anyway. It's okay to bomb their houses to bits. And it's okay to kill their babies. And it's okay to erase their children's lives from existence. Because they might be homophobic. They might be transphobic. How are you going to support that? I got news for you, motherfucker. Just because you want me dead doesn't mean I want you dead. I don't believe in the death penalty, and I don't believe in genocide for reasons of ethical disagreement. Period. See, Roy, this is what I'll never understand about folks like you. In your mind, everything's so black and white. In your mind, the fact that someone opposes my existence means I gotta oppose their existence. Why? Why? What, so if some 14-year-old threatens my life, I should take that seriously? Even though I know for a fact they don't have a gun or a knife? I should be like, yeah. I should be like, oh my god. You know? Or I should be like, getting my own gun out and putting a bullet in their head? What is your fucking, what is the point here? What are you trying to say? Like, what is the implication that I should draw from this conversation? Because I'm really not getting it. I really can tell I'm not getting it. No, I don't believe in the death penalty. I don't think killing someone undoes any death. I don't think that the state murdering someone makes the person you love any less dead. I don't think the state murdering someone makes the person you love any less raped or sexually abused as a child or anything like that. And I've been through some pretty traumatic crimes. I'll be honest with you guys. I don't want the person who did them dead because that person is loved by some people because he's, he's someone's kid. He's someone's grandkid. He's someone's cousin. Plenty of people's cousin. He's somebody's best friend. Like he's got a fucking life out there. And the event's too far away for me to even bring charges these days anyway. But I don't, even if I could, I wouldn't ask for the death penalty. Even if that wouldn't be an option. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't. And people will use the example, oh, well, what if somebody in your family was killed? If somebody in my family was killed, I really don't think I could be emotionally trusted to provide good input on what an actually good punishment for that would be, on what an actually good justice-based result would be for that. Because I think I would be coming at it from an emotionally charged place. And I don't think emotionally charged people make great decisions. I think that they make vindictive and cold decisions sometimes, especially when their family is concerned. And I don't think that your family being implicated in something means that you get to be cold and vindictive about the matter of human life. So if your daughter got SA'd and beaten, you wouldn't feel like they should be dead? I might feel like they should be dead, but I don't think I should get to make that decision. No. No. What? Is killing them going to make that not happen? No. Is it going to undo that? No. Is it going to prevent anyone else from doing it? No. So what good does it do? Would I want that person put away from society for a while? You bet your sweet ass. Hell yeah. I sure would. I sure would. I have a son. If somebody hurt him, I would want them put away for a time that, like, I don't know how to say, I don't want to say matches, but I would want them put away for a time equivalent to the damage that they did to him, right? But I would want that system. I honestly, it would kind of, it would be a bittersweet thing for me, right? Because on the one hand, yeah, they'd be getting sent to prison, but on the other hand, they'd be sent to American prison, where they're going to get to hang out with a bunch of other fucking people that do horrible bad shit too. Let's say my son got caught up in a mugging or a robbery when he's like a teenager or something. They're just going to learn how to be better robbers and muggers and thieves. They're not going to learn any real life skills in there in most American prisons. They might get a GED if they didn't have their high school diploma before, but they're probably not going to learn any real professional skills that they can bring out into the rest of the real world. So they're going to be right back to beating and mugging people, you know? So what's the better option? I say rehabilitative justice. I say that we need to fucking teach people that commit these horrible crimes, and even less horrible crimes, just teach people with like the antisocial tendency of criminality how to be better people, better neighbors, better citizens, etc. Maybe that can't be done with a rapist, maybe that can't be done with a murderer, but I would way rather see the attempt than to see a person's life just fucking go away in some ham-fisted attempt at justice. If justice is to be blind, then justice cannot be trusted to pull a trigger. Need to charge my thingy. There comes a time when we heed a certain call, and the world must stand together as one. There are people dying. It's time we take a stand. The greatest gift of all. We can't go on pretending day by day that someone somewhere will do something. There are people dying. We are the world. We are children. We are one. You make a brighter day, so let's start giving. There are voices crying. We're saving our lives to make a brighter day, just you and me. Yeah, once again, Roy, you are not listening to the points I'm bringing up. I think you are trying to justify genocide by claiming that these people have an ideological difference to me, and I'm telling you, I don't care. That doesn't justify what Israel is doing to them. I didn't think it justified war when George Bush used it to justify war in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I don't buy it now when Israel wants to use it to justify war in Gaza. I don't buy it. And when I say I don't buy it, I mean I don't care about the factuality of it one way or the other. I don't think that you having a bad position on queer rights means I have a right to kill you. Period. You haven't accounted for that yet, Roy. And until you do, I'm really not interested in reading anything else you have to say. I understand you're going to keep reciting Israeli propaganda about how Palestine is the most anti-gay place on the planet, even though I could pull up a bunch of American allies that are super fucking anti-queer. I could totally do that if you want to go down this fucking road. But I'm really just interested in hearing you account for the fact that I don't give a shit, even if they are. I don't care if every single Palestinian in Gaza hates gay people. I don't think that justifies bombing them. I don't think that justifies killing their babies. I don't think that justifies bombing their fucking hospitals, apartments, parks, every fucking thing else that you can, just because you don't like these people. Just because you think that their politics are backwards or some shit. It is purely ignorant for you to learn about the facts. I know about the facts. And the fact of it is that every single one of these fucking countries with a huge fucking population of fundamentalist Muslims at the top of their government and everything, every single one of them has a giant undercurrent of progressivism. And in every one of them, the threat is from the mullahs. The threat is from the religious weirdos at the top. The threat is from the fucking fundamentalists waving around the AR-15s and AK-47s. That is who the threat is with. The regular people don't give a shit. The people, you know who gives a shit about queers in Iran? You know who gives a fuck about gay people in Iran? The Ayatollah. The people who work for the Ayatollah. The people in the government who have to align with the Ayatollah's beliefs. The people in their employ. That's who gives a fuck about gay people in Iran. Maybe 30% of the population. Maybe. The rest don't give a shit. They claim to give a shit so that they'll continue working their jobs and having a life in Iran. They don't actually give a shit. And interviews from people who escape from these regimes prove it, if you want to cite interviews. Roy, I'm not engaging with these points anymore, bro. I've heard your fucking argument before. I've heard your song and dance. I am old enough to remember what the fucking drumbeat of war sounded like back in 2008. I was only 10 years old, but that was about the time I started paying attention to politics, motherfucker, and I remember what the drumbeat of war sounds like. I remember. You don't need to recite it for me. I know the chant well. Motherfuckers act like the last 20 years of history just hasn't happened. Like we haven't heard all this before. The same dumbass, disproven, easily refuted, and genocidal argument being brought up time and time again, as if it should matter, as if it somehow justifies whatever Israel wants to do to these countries, because, oh, they happen to hate gay people quite a bit. They happen to hate gay people, so that justifies bombing them. That justifies destroying their culture. Because their leaders have some bad ideas about gay people. Because maybe some of the people have been brainwashed into having bad ideas about gay people. I got news for you. Even if every single one of them hates gay people, I don't think that entitles us to bomb them. I don't think that that justifies genociding them. And I never will, ever. I don't care how many countries you bring up. You know what? There are countries in the Middle East that are awful to gay people that my country, America, is allied with. So we don't give a fuck about this issue. Our nation doesn't. You're the most uneducated person I have seen. Uh-huh. They hate all that and are not fundamental like them. Uh-huh. Tell me more. Tell me more. I've heard it all before. Like I said, I've heard it all before. No, I think I might have dislocated my shoulder, y'all. Is it normal to feel like your shoulder is just like not staying in position all the way? I think I fucking dislocated my shoulder, yo. That doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel right at all. What did I do? What did I do, man? Fuck. I'm not even 30 yet. This shit is not supposed to be starting for me. Okay? Ugh. How did you do that? I don't fucking know. I'll give you $5 to listen to a song with me. I couldn't even if I wasn't worried about the copyright infringement. Because I just don't have any way to listen to a song out here without, you know, ending the stream or something. Yeah, it's not dislocated. Yeah, I've heard that dislocation is not a real thing. Although, man, doesn't that look weird? Does my shoulder, does that, you know, like that looks weird to me. I don't know. It hurts. It hurts real bad. Oh boy, does it hurt. And the more I try to lift it, the worse it hurts. I really can't lift it much farther than that. I can lift this one like all the way up here. This one's fine, but this one is like, oh, feels like it weighs like 10 pounds. Oh, fuck. Being fat sucks, y'all. Actually, I don't even know if this is something I can attribute to my fat. Genuinely, I don't know that it has much to do with it. Have your partner help you put it back in? I don't know how to do it, though. I'm afraid I would tell them to help me with it, and then they would break my arm or something. You know? I'm not a fucking trained masseuse or none of that shit. I would end up like giving my partner instructions that would end up ripping my arm out or something. They go to do it and they just rip my arm off like a cheap zombie. It's like, well, I knew I was falling apart, but here, now that the joint's all out, you know, we can do some maintenance here, maybe. YouTube, LOL, yeah. Oh, shit, Matt Blank, you're funny. Yeah, fucking go to YouTube. Learn how to work on yourself fucking by YouTube. Yeah, I'll just go watch Dr. Gregory Johnson. Hello. This is Houston's favorite chiropractor, Dr. Gregory Johnson. We're going to be doing our first ring dinger today. I'll just see how I do a ring dinger on the arm, right? No, dude. I don't trust this shit. I'll trust YouTube when it comes to cooking. I'll trust YouTube when it comes to, like, working on a car, I guess. But when it comes to medical advice, man, I don't trust these YouTube docs. I don't trust the bullshit they be spewing. Maybe that's just something that, like, here's the thing about me. I have, I'm a skeptic in general for a lot of things, but the area I'm most skeptical in is medical shit. Like, that's where I'm most, and when I say I'm skeptical, I don't mean in the sense that a lot of people mean these days. I'm not anti-vax or anything like that. What I mean is that, like, I trust doctors and institutions that I know to be ran by doctors, right? I trust hospitals and things like that. I trust medical science. I do not trust anybody that claims to be representing medical science, but then I look into them and then it turns out they're actually like a life coach or some bullshit like that. And I don't claim any layperson that talks about medical science as if there's some kind of authority on it. Anytime I talk about medical shit, I always am clear to say, like, I am not a doctor. I don't know for sure. But what I understand about this is, you know, that kind of disclaimer means a lot to me. And if you don't have that, I really don't give a shit about your opinion on medical shit unless you are a fucking doctor, you know? And that makes me very fucking skeptical of YouTube docs and things like that, because I know that there are like public registries, but I don't know if they exist in every state, and I fear taking advice from the wrong fucking place. And a lot of that skepticism and like empiricism kind of instinct, I think, was born in me from my mom. She had like a really good kind of attitude about that sort of thing growing up, and I think that carried on to me, and I think it's led me well. There's nothing wrong with me. Well, there's clearly something wrong. You're just fat, get up and do some stretches. Well, if it was just because I was fat, then it would hurt all the time. If it was just because I was fat, it would fucking hurt all the time, or it would be a familiar pain. I have never felt my fucking shoulder be like this. You're a weird sort, Lucidius. I don't know where you stand on any fucking thing. But I hope you hang out, and I hope you stick around, because it's fun in here. We need people who disagree and want to type out legible comments that lead to interesting conversations. Because that's our bread and butter here, is arguing with people who disagree with us into the wee hours of the night, you know? That's what makes us the money. That and the guitar. Which I might get off this stream and go do that for a minute, honestly. Obviously, I'll start a new stream so you guys can request songs and shit, but... There's something happening here, but... What? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you feel it too, Matt? Well, I was talking earlier, I don't know if you were here, Matt, but I was talking, I think, towards the beginning of the stream about how we've been going through a period of real political upheaval over the last, I would say, 10 years, really. I think the front edges of it, I think, started, honestly, in the 80s and 90s, but I think, and if you want to take it all the way back, you can take it all the way back to World War II, you can take it all the way back to the Revolution, you can take it all the way back to the fucking first time a cave person, you know, brained another cave person over a fucking dispute about the nature of their cave or some shit. You can take it as far as you want to take it, but I think if you want to talk about the most recent set of upheavals and kind of like the new era that we're arriving in, this is a journey that began in 2015, my friends. Do we all agree that this is a journey that began in 2015? Cave politics, bro. As a drunk woman, I'd love to hear you sing. Oh, okay, cool. Well, it's looking like we've got support for this mission. But yeah, I ask again. I gotta go use the bathroom, but I ask again. Do we all agree that the current crop of weirdness in American politics, ow, oh god, ow, ow, it's so tender, ow, fuck, man. That person said, there's nothing wrong with you, you didn't dislocate it, but man, oh man, does it hurt. And it keeps feeling like it's falling in and out of the joint or some shit. I don't know how else to put it. Ow. Motherfucker. You know, it would be one thing if my shoulder hurt by itself. But the fact that my fucking foot still hurts all this time later fucking blows my mind, number one. And number two, just pisses me off. Play this, I better get it down now, 'cause otherwise I'll have to bend around. Ah. Right side is hurting? No, it's my right foot and my left shoulder, so. But my right foot has been hurting for like 2 months now, pretty much, honestly. I had a cellulitis infection in it at one time, and now it's hurting less today than it has in 2 months, so I'm happy. It's mobility that I haven't had in a long time, but it's still healing, and it's still a little tender to walk on, especially when I first get up, so. Like, you guys heard me, I wasn't, like, hobbling when I came in, but, you know, getting up, I was like, ow, you know. Yeah, don't put that evil on me. Don't put that voodoo on me. Don't put that hoodoo on me. I ain't got no cancer. I ain't got no stroke. But yeah, I think 2015 was the year it all went downhill. Pretty much everything after that was, like, that was the year Trump started his campaign, and he continued, or I think it was 2015. It was either 2015 or 2016, but either way, things started to ratchet up during that year, you know? So you get 2015, the beginning of the Trump candidacy and everything, and 2016, you get him as like the Republican frontrunner. He basically executes everyone on the Republican like nominee stage or whatever, the people competing for the candidacy. Basically assassinates all of them, just like politically assassinates all of them, and like name one of those people that is still relevant. Name one. You can't. None of them are. They might be relevant to some degree in their state's politics, but Jeb Bush isn't. Jeb Bush isn't the governor of Florida anymore. Maybe he's some state level politician. I don't know. But he really doesn't need to be, you know? Ben, what was his fucking name? What was his fucking name? The dude who was, he was Trump's, like, head of housing or some shit. I don't remember. He ended up getting some Trump cabinet position, but he's not in the current Trump admin. And nobody's heard of him since that time. Ben Carson or something like that? Maybe? I don't fucking pretend to know. But that's kind of my point, right? Is who fucking remembers anybody? Ted Cruz is like the one dude I can think of who has retained national prominence since the 2016 election besides Trump. I can't think of a single other candidate. Well, Marco Rubio, but he's been riding on the back of Trump's coattails ever since he became dominant as the nominee. Every Republican that rode Trump's coattails in the wake of him winning the nomination has gone on to continue to have some level of national relevance, and everybody who's opposed him has just been ousted from the Republican Party in one way or another. It's been removed of any power, effectively. And I think that process really did begin in 2015, 2016, right? And then you have, so that was the biggest like period of change. That was when Obama's strategy of using social media and using memes and things like that was seen to even greater effect in the Trump presidency and candidacy. He used it in a way that that Clinton couldn't figure out. He used it even better than Obama did. He was an even more memeable and even more willing to go into humor. Like, he was a fucking real estate, or I'm sorry, he was a real estate dude, but he was, like, at that time, honestly, Trump was not famous or wealthy, frankly, from his real estate business. His big cash cow, when he started his candidacy, was his fucking gig as the dude on The Apprentice with NBC. Michael Moore makes the argument that that's the only fucking reason he did the candidacy in the first place, was to try and get NBC to pay him more money, but it ended up backfiring on him because he didn't consider the political leanings of people who fund NBC or people who want to advertise on NBC. He didn't consider the political volatility of the things he was saying. He thought it would just be seen as like, oh, Trump's just being Trump. He's just like this crazy old man anyway. You know, he didn't actually, I don't know if that's true, but big if true. It's one of those big if true kind of things in my mind. For what it's worth to start off, right? Love that. Well, I don't know if we'll do For What It's Worth to start off, because I don't know that I know that song off the top of my head. But we are. What can you play? Well, save all these comments for just a second. I'm going to end this stream and start a new one. We're going to do what I call a busking stream. So I'm going to do, it'll be $5 a song. I might play a couple of introductory ones to get us started. After that, it'll be $5 a song. I can't guarantee any specific requests, but I will try to honor them when I can and work out an equivalent request when I can. So meet me on that stream in just a minute.